Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Political Head Trauma, where if
Head Trauma had a podcast. Did it sound like this? Hi, everyone. Yeah, we got an awesome show tonight. We're starting a little late because traffic jam issues, but we will have Nicolene Peck on. She is now our new state rep for House 28. That's here covering Tooele. So she's my state rep, and we're excited to talk with her. It'll be her first session she'll be going into here shortly. So kind of want to pick her brain before she goes in and see if there's anything she wants to discuss or bring attention to.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about Nicolene. She won quite handedly in the election, and I have no doubt she's been hitting the pavement, really, really talking to a lot of Tooele citizens. And as far as her accomplishments, they're worldwide, the things that she's done for families. And a lot of people look to her, and she writes books, and she guides families. And I mean, she's a phenomenal person. She's got an amazing family herself. And I think that she lives by example. I mean, she's pretty exceptional. So, she knocked on a lot of doors, and she got to know the people, and she's been highly engaged in the county for as long as I can remember. And up at Capitol Hill, she's been engaged working with legislature and bills and different things that education kind of brings in, and families. So
She's like
last week and Nicolene this week. I think that
no, Scott Sandel's on next week, correct?
Yes, the Senator Scott Sandel will be here. He will call in from his ranch in Box Elder.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited to talk to Senator Sandel. I mean, he's not new at this game, and he's been up at the Hill for quite a while. He's got a lot of respect, and I mean, he's somebody that gets things done, and we're lucky to have him representing a lot of our county. He's my representative. He's my senator in Stansbury and Grantsville, and he shares the county with Dan Thatcher, who hopefully we could get on someday.
Yeah, Dan Thatcher is my representative. He was on, a little over a year ago. We had him on. It'd be nice to get him back on. But
actually, I think the last time you had him on was at the county convention.
Yeah.
And that would be...
Was it at the county convention? Yeah, a year and a half ago.
It was the special convention
where
Tracy
special election,
Shaw was elected. So,
yep.
I do recall that. It's funny how I remember, because we haven't been able to get him on since. And back then is when you and David were running the show.
Yeah, that was a while back. That was when the transgender issue was really big. It was really big here in Utah right after
Hi, Cher.
Right after Governor Cox became nationally known for he was talking to some school kids.
Yeah, in the context of that.
Yeah.
Got blown out of proportion.
I'm not going to say whether it got blown out of proportion or not.
What happened to David?
Yeah.
David moved on to bigger and brighter and sunnier.
And he went to Florida. I'm kind of jealous right now. But anyways, yeah. So I'm excited to talk to Nicolene.
But hey, Matthew, he's still part of the show. You'll see David in the comments in no time. I hope that he'll join us. Sometimes he does jump on and join us.
He usually jumps in a little late. You'll see him towards the end of the show. But we'll try to get him on when he has some free time. I'm excited to talk to Nicolene, and Holly has a news story for us.
Well, it's not news. And what's crazy is I really just learned about the details only a few days ago. It kind of went under my radar. So, we talk about freedom and we talk about independence, and I'll never get over Celeste Malloy saying, I don't think Americans are really ready for true independence, because it's hard. It's difficult. It requires individual accountability.
Mhm.
And, we've talked about mostly, multiple times, you and I and David, when I was on your show as a guest, you and I on our own show, regarding how Utah has a law against sending liquor in the mail, or not sending it, receiving it in the state of
Mhm.
Utah. Utah is the only one that can sell alcohol here. And for those of you not in Utah, that's pretty crazy. We have liquor stores that are run and owned by the state. And there's a sin tax on things like cigarettes, alcohol, tanning, things that are sinful.
Mhm.
And it just so happened in March, a bill was passed and the governor signed where they are going to outlaw flavored vapes, which is insane, because flavored vapes are sold in vape shops. You have to be 21 to get in there. They are just like cigarettes or alcohol. They are controlled, with certain laws and perimeters. And last session it passed, and under the guise of, we need to protect teenagers because they're more likely to vape if there are flavors. Now, on the opposite end of that, and what wasn't brought up, or maybe it was, I really don't know. I'm falling on my sword here, folks, because I am so irritated by this bill. This bill, I know so many adults who quit smoking because of vapes and they started vaping. Now, that's neither here nor there. I know that vapes, on studies, it's pretty new. There's not long-term studies on the effects of vaping, but I do see that they are less harmful than cigarettes. They're just different. You shouldn't put anything in your lungs, period, that doesn't belong in there. That's understood. But there's a nicotine content, and I believe nitroglycerin or something. But there's not tar. There's not all the different chemicals that are in a cigarette. So the whole argument is that you're making it illegal for adults to do something that is normally not illegal, and they're grown-ups, and you're taking away something that they enjoy. It's called freedom. And you're saying, sorry, we're going to make it illegal to protect the teens. Well, it's legal to own a firearm. You just have to make sure you're protecting it and you're responsible for that. It's legal to own alcohol, all flavors. It's your responsibility as a parent to control it, to protect it if you've got teenagers at home. These things, cigarettes, they're legal. It's your responsibility to protect them, make sure your teenager doesn't get them. But the government doesn't trust you. The government thinks they know best, and they put an absolute ban on it. And that goes in effect January 1st. And from research that I've done around town, is my mic really loud? I don't know. It sounds loud in my ears, but
no, you're hitting just right.
So if that's researching around town, I've talked to some of the different people who are involved in this or who are affected by this. And they say the health department's going to come in and seize all flavored vapes on December 31st that are not sold. So will the owners of these shops be reimbursed for what gets taken? I'll tell you what, if you live in Utah, you might want to run to your local vape shop, whether you enjoy vaping or not, and buy up everything that you can, because it's going to be underground. That's what people are going to do. Or they're going to go to Wendover.
It's going to be
and they're going to buy it there.
The black market.
Hi, Mike. Welcome to the show.
It's going
to be a black market thing. It'd be like marijuana, which also isn't illegal now to possess. Why not make the law more stringent on teenagers who are caught with it? Why not go after the rule breakers?
My favorite part is the law was passed with no fanfare because they knew nobody would be a fan.
Matthew, you're absolutely right. Now, everyone who vapes will just go back to smoking more harmful substance. Yeah, makes sense. So here's the thing. They're going to let you vape. but it can only be tobacco and menthol flavor. Now, look, you are somebody.
Yeah, I'm a vapor
who vapes.
Mm-hmm.
So you just going to quit?
Gonna have to.
Because who can afford it? But that's the whole point. That's what they want.
Sure.
Right? So I'm not saying anyone should break the law, but if someone opened a shop on the Wendover border,
hey, the great state
they'd
of
probably
Utah
be rich.
is going to force morality on me, and I'm here for it.
I think it's crazy. I think that taking individual freedom away from people. I mean, sure, if you find a teenager who's got tons of vapes and they're busted, find out where they're getting them from. And then when you find out where you're getting them from, if it is the parent, cite the parent, just like if they had your firearm. But at the same time, what I learned from an employee of one of these shops, they have to hold on to all the vapes that they would rather recycle because they don't throw them in their dumpsters. Because old vape, from what I understand, they don't throw them in the dumpsters because they're afraid the teenagers will get in the dumpsters.
Oh, I was
and they can't just throw them anywhere because they're battery operated or whatever.
I've got two thoughts. One, I was chatting with my local vape dealer. I go and talk to, young man. He was telling me that twice a day he has to run crackheads out of his dumpster digging around for the little mostly burned up vapes. And but anyway, so what if we made a TV show out of this, like Miami Vice, but we did Tooele Vice or something?
Crackdown,
where we've got like undercover vape agents coming.
Can you imagine
going underground to
this? Can you imagine if you bought cases and cases and cases and you became the local vape salesman and now you're a freaking criminal, like you're dealing weed or something?
Here's the question. Well, even right now, I'll bet if you were selling vapes without a license, you'd become a criminal. But
now they're flavored.
But here's the question. Are they illegal to own or just to sell?
I don't know. I think it's to
VBI.
sell. They went after the...
What VBI? What would VBI mean? All right, let's guess.
Why don't you just tell us, Matt? Because our imaginations are in the gutter usually.
Mine is not. I am
like I'm the only 12-year-old boy in this room.
But let's VBI vape
like FBI. The Vape Bureau of Investigation.
But man, imagine that. But like, that's the question. Is it going to be, are they outlawing them or just criminalizing the sale of them?
That's the same, I think. If you can't buy them, they're illegal. It's just like pot used to be. Now you can get stopped with almost 100 pounds of pot and it's still a ticket.
Well, not necessarily.
I believe you can have them and possess them. Okay. Like if you went to, just like alcohol, if you went over to Wendover, you can stock up on alcohol. But what I do know that during my investigation was that in Nevada, if they sell alcohol or cigarettes to a Utah driver's license, they can raise the tax on what they make off it.
Oh,
so
really?
you're paying more for the product potentially. Now, this is all just what some employees have told me and store owners.
Now, your day job, you work around alcohol, so you'd probably be a good in on that.
I do. And I have to have a license of sorts to do that. And I have to follow very strict laws. And even everything with the alcohol has to be locked up, has to be accounted for. Every drop of it must be accounted for. And I understand, I respect the laws, but I still think it's crap that I can't mail a wine basket to a friend in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
I can send one to anyone else in the country.
We had a local winery out here.
Yeah. Yeah. And for all of how long? A year?
Yeah. They went under Manenbach Cellars. They went under because kind of as a startup in this modern age, if you want to survive that business, you've got to have male portion, a male side to it. Not just a male side, but a mailing side.
Nice.
But anyways, yeah. And it's too bad. I enjoyed his wine. Had a more of a dry reds is kind of what he's specializing in. But yeah.
This is what I'm getting at when I mentioned Celeste and what she had said about independence. If we really went back to the Constitution and the rights that are given to you as an American citizen, and the government stays out of your life, you would have to be responsible for yourself. And if you want to quit vaping or you want to quit drinking or whatever, you're responsible for that. Keeping it out of your kids' hands. Yes, we should have laws, but do we take away? I mean, I'm curious to know how many people used to smoke cigarettes and then turn to vapes as an alternative.
Yeah.
And are healthier.
Yeah.
Or we don't know if nicotine alone or tobacco alone doesn't cause cancer. We don't know. I mean, people have been smoking tobacco since the dawn of time, as far as we know. Now, cigarettes, and yes, tobacco is addictive. We know that now. But so is alcohol. So is, you know what makes me the most irritated? And I bring this up all the time, but for those of you who have Hulu and you watch the commercials, if you're like me and you don't pay for Hulu Plus or whatever, commercial free, every other commercial is a pharmaceutical commercial. All legal drugs, all legal. But they're going to take a vape away from you. I'm just disgusted. The government gets to choose which is harmful and which is not. And firearms is tough because that's your Second Amendment, and everyone's going to fight you to the death on it. But they're treating this almost like a firearm.
My hard part comes with that the government made this law, and it feels like they did it in secret. I'm actually, I'm not okay with them outlawing it, but whatever. But my indigestion comes from them making it, and it feels like they did it in secret, like it was a backroom deal.
I don't know if it was.
Even if it's for the benefit, but this should be something like that that's going to affect, probably 1 in 10 or 15 people automatically. That should be put right out in the open.
Well, that's what we're doing tonight.
That's what we're doing. But
sadly,
no, the
with a month left of till the law goes into effect. But here's the
people
thing,
that are taking the right should. And I wonder if they'll end up being like our federal officials were when they outlawed Cuban cigars, yet they all still had a drawer of them.
I don't know that anyone at the Capitol vapes, to be honest. I mean, I wouldn't know to pay attention to this law. It just got brought up to me by a good friend who was like worried about it. So I did some research, and I couldn't believe it. It went under my radar because why would I think to even ask about it? Why would I think that this wasn't going to happen?
That's why it should be out in the public. Okay, so
do you want to read it?
I've told my people the fastest way to stand straight is not celebrities on the government for everything. It's full fact about life, even as an African that I am.
I think what
that's from Mike from Nigeria
is don't go to the government for everything. I think celebrities might not be the right word, but he's absolutely right.
Well, over here, I mean,
individual responsibility.
Over here, government is celebrities. Carrie says Cox sees himself as a benevolent father in many ways. Most dictators do.
I don't see Cox anywhere near this bill, to be honest. He just signed it. But the legislature voted for it. They voted for it just like any other bill. They did all their committees and they did all this stuff. And then the governor went on his staff. I don't want to blame the governor here, but I mean, why would he not if they brought this bill to him?
I understand. I understand the drive. Thanks, Mike. He makes a good point. Don't go to the government. But I understand why he would sign it and why the government, they're like, we're protecting kids, you know, we're just there. This protects kids. This will keep kids off that vape dole, you know.
Kids have been smoking. Teenagers have been smoking forever. Remember, that's where they went after the tobacco. That's one of the things they went after big tobacco for.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, look, I get why they're doing it. The thing that killed tobacco, and I would not be surprised if tobacco did not have a hand in drawing up this legislation to the very least, because the thing that killed tobacco was an alternative choice, and vaping was that alternative choice. And is vaping perfect or the answer all? It is not even close.
No,
but it's an alternative choice, and I'm sure it's better than cigarettes, you know, but we don't know.
Well, studies show that it's less deadly than cigarettes as far as cancer and things like that, but it doesn't make it. It's not good.
Such a short term
in your lungs that doesn't belong there is not good.
It's been such a short term thing. I know that.
Thank you, Izzy. I get what you meant. Depending on the government, not celebrities.
Yes, that's what he said.
You know,
so it sure does smell better than, you know, how whatever 20% of the population walking around smelling like a stale ashtray.
Well, yeah, and there's no secondhand variant to it.
Yeah, that's all BS anyway. It was proven forever ago. That was crap that was made up by a government to force you out of restaurants.
Can I just say, this isn't another issue. The bill where they're going to try to protect kids from Facebook, and I mean, that's a big bill. They're going after social media. And that one always rubbed me the wrong way too, because I believe in freedom before. And I think as a parent, it's my job to keep my kids off the socials. And I think they are harmful. But do I have to have the government tell me that? I mean, my son is learning how to produce a show in a way. I need him on the socials to share this show. I don't like being told that I can't do something.
My favorite. Did we talk about this when it happened, when they first put through that that bill where they controlled who and how they got onto your the porn sites?
Yeah.
And something changed to where the porn sites put up we copied Louisiana, if I remember, Arkansas, one of those places.
Making sure they can verify your age and your
There was
ID.
A little video that would play. We played it on the show, and it's some lady talking, because of the state you live in, you can't. And there was a guy who called one of our legislators screaming at him. And we didn't hear it. He didn't record it, but there was a written recording. And the legislator woke up in the morning to this guy yelling at him about how he can't get on the porn site.
Hi, David. David's here.
Could you imagine?
I want my children to be protected from pornography on the internet. And I've said this since I've been a member of this show, is that porn sites should have their own .x or something, so that your child can't accidentally stumble upon pornography in the way that it is sold.
I'm
against pornography,
but it's hilarious that a guy called.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do.
State rep.
You're supposed to talk to your rep when you disagree.
7 a.m. screaming at him. The guys are probably in the same ward, and he's yelling at him.
Honestly, the government has no business. And this is what bothers me. If they figured out a way to make OnlyFans safer, for example, to absolutely check on who's of age, why can't the government do the same thing with your ability to purchase alcohol from your local
I think because
DoorDash Or why can't they do the same thing, purchasing alcohol from out of state and buying a wine basket for somebody? I mean, if you can verify who's purchasing and who's receiving it, if there's a way to do that, why are we not doing that? Why does the state think they have to big daddy us all over the place and tell us that you can't do this, can't do that? It's ridiculous. They're already taxing us to the hilt on things they seem extracurricular, if you know what I mean, in the state. And I don't care about pornography. I don't care. I don't care about any of this stuff. What I care is this feels like a violation of our freedom. We're big kids. We should be allowed to mail alcohol or buy alcohol or to produce alcohol and create our own business and have our own line of alcohol out of this state without the state regulating it to death so that they're the only ones that can sell it. And they're creating a registry for purchasing vapes. A registry. It's in the bill. What the hell do they need a registry for?
So the VBI is for real.
So Perry says,
ATFV?
I don't think that's the bill. It's about parents giving the permission, from what I understand. It's about holding big tech accountable. It's set up with control so parents know what is being offered. I'm still cautious because they don't want to show kids anorexic models, but they will show trend. That's what I'm saying. Well, who decides what's acceptable and what isn't?
Well, here's the deal. I think
that's the parents' job.
The ability of a child to get on the internet or to get on Facebook or Instagram or any of that is completely up to the parents. But there's a Faustian bargain that comes with that, because the simplicity of getting your child a phone and you'll be able to contact them whenever you want. You'll be able to check on them. You'll be able to get Life 360 and see where they are.
You can do it without internet.
That is so it's that Faustian deal. So do you give them access to this broader world, or do you limit that in however way you limit that? And I think that should be up to each individual parent.
Absolutely. Why does the government have to come in and blanket it? I know, because there are parents who don't give a crap, and there are parents who don't understand or aren't going to monitor it.
Yeah.
But that's what freedom is. It's messy. Independence is messy. That's the thing. Not everyone is going to follow your laws, regardless if you make them or not.
Well,
regardless.
Keep making more of them, and there's more laws to be broken.
Exactly.
And maybe it's just a revenue grab. Maybe the government's, they
don't gain anything by banning it. Who gains it is
probably not
Wendover, Mesquite, the places that Utahns will go for it. They're going to make a ton of money.
We could go to Idaho and buy the lottery.
Hell, I think even Idaho has them not illegal. So
I don't know. We'll find out.
I don't want the lottery in this state, but I understand why people go buy tickets. You can't win if you don't.
Too busy looking for EBT cards for illegal.
David, no one can afford to come to Florida.
Come to Florida.
Not yet. Cox signed the bill.
What if we brought Florida to here?
Virtue signaling. Cox signed the bill. I don't know. Like I said, this came under the radar. So I'm just done the research over the last week. I don't have any idea. I never saw it flagged at the Capitol as something. And again, I'm not really the type of person that's going to go up and fight for vaping.
How tough is that for there's a couple of businesses here in Tooele, and their doors are going to roll right up.
Absolutely.
Well, they still sell cigarettes and rolling papers. They'll probably consolidate right now.
They can sell mushrooms, whatever the psychedelic is in mushrooms. I don't know what it's called. If someone knows, tell me, but they can still sell
psilocybin,
chocolate. Yeah. Chocolate, other types of things in their shops.
They can sell
with that
psilocybin.
Ingredient. There's a certain percentage you can
hit. Go on a little mini.
I don't know if it works.
Astral search,
but I know it's something they sell. I don't know if it's as popular as a vape. But yeah, they've got You can buy bongs in there. They've got all kinds of things you can still sell, but it is their number one purchase thing.
They
is
call
going.
those water pipes.
I don't know what they are called. I've never had to use one.
David says, I'm going to end up a Democrat soon. It's tough. It's tough. And now, man, here's the question. So I've been calling this out for a minute, that when the Republicans get back in control, because we all know the Republicans went ridiculous in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, which made them lose control, which is why you see all these intellectual types. They're all against Republicans. But now that Republicans are back in control, are we going to have a moment where they roll back some of those stuff that the Democrats did that was a legitimate fight for liberties, the ability for gay people to get married and the loosening of the drug laws? Are they going to roll back on those and then start implementing their own laws in? Because the Democrats, I mean, say the loosening of the drug laws, as a libertarian, I'm for it, but I do understand it comes with a severe cost, and you have to put in other harsh controls around that and enforce laws around that on the outskirts a lot harder. And you've got to be willing to take that hit. But if you're just going to open them up and you're not going to enforce the laws around it, such as in the public, by schools, any crimes or anything else that's committed after that, you've got to enforce those. At least you've got to be ironclad on your enforcement of laws that are commonly broken around drug use.
What's going to happen to teenagers caught with a flavored vape now?
Man, I'm telling you, they're going to.
Is it going to be worse than getting an alcohol ticket?
Going to put them in the chair.
Because alcohol is not banned. Is it going to be worse than having a cigarette? Because that's not banned. They're literally turning teenagers. I mean,
teenagers are going to be back to smoking soon.
They're going to find something.
Can we just go up to Capitol Hill and yell, "Told you so"?
I don't want to do that. I want this to get fixed.
I want to do that. I want to do that to all of them.
I want every one of our representatives to consider freedom first. And that's
even the ones
I don't even know who stood up for it. I'm looking it up.
Finding out who signed it. But anyways, I don't know. And no, we're probably not ready for freedom.
This happened March 21st.
If you've got a shopping cart that's not in the corral at your local store, you're not ready for it.
Senate Bill 61 outlaws the sale of flavored e-cigarette cartridges and disposable devices, specifically targeting flavors such as fruit, candy, dessert, alcoholic beverages, spice, or even mint. They consider mint a flavor, unlike menthols.
Spice.
The ban is set to go into effect on January 1st.
I got a curry flavor vape.
Ew. State Senator Jen Plum, Democrat.
Okay.
Salt Lake City. Bill sponsored, said the legislature was designed to curb the epidemic of teen vaping. Plum, a physician, noted she's seen the effects of addiction in teenagers firsthand, including seeing young Utahns in the emergency room with nicotine withdrawal. Oh, and banning the vape is going to stop that, huh? Because cigarettes aren't easy to find.
Dave says, where's Lyman and who voted for it? So nicotine withdrawal can throw you in the hospital?
Who the hell knows?
Wow.
So remember how they used to say that marijuana was the gateway drug?
Hold on. So now she's saying nicotine withdrawal throws them in the emergency room. Let's take away nicotine.
This not nicotine. They're not taking away nicotine. They're taking away
good vape. Tasting nicotine.
A vast majority of teenagers start vaping with flavored products. Most commonly, flavors among teens are fruit and other sweets, such as bubblegum or pink lemonade.
Mine is a berry flavor, if I remember. I can't read that.
Oh, but her bill was not designed to put specialty tobacco shops out of business. However, she noted businesses are going to have to change their model if we take the flavors out.
We're going to outlaw automobiles, but not to put car sales companies out of. We don't want to ruin Marcosian.
Okay. Senator Todd Weiler, and I like Todd. He's out of Davis County.
Okay.
Not everybody loves him, but I think he's hilarious. Just follow him on Twitter. He remarks that teenagers in Utah, he's a Republican, also abuse alcohol. There's no push to ban beer or other drinks that might appeal to young people. He said also the bill would harm the hundreds of specialty tobacco shops that have popped up in Utah in recent years. Currently, specialty tobacco shops are the only place where flavored vape products can be sold. Customers must be 21 or over to enter.
So is this a local, does it say, can you track who all voted yay or nay on it?
Let me see. This happened in March. Protesters showed up to argue when this happened. Some other states already banned flavored e-cigarettes. California and New Jersey. That's great because we're so much like them, aren't we?
Let's follow those two states of fiscally logical decisions.
Hundreds of disposable vape devices have flooded into the U.S. from China. And this has presented a challenge for the Food and Drug Administration, which is currently playing whack-a-mole with the thousands of illegal products. In addition to
we got to say China,
banning flavored vapes, Utah bill also outlaws the sale of any vape that is not authorized by federal officials. So this would be the Bill 61, and Jen Plum, Democrat, gave this to us in March. Governor signed it after session, along with another number of other bills that he signed. So I'm not going to drag Spencer Cox into this, especially when it won. I'm curious what the votes were, though. You guys, this may mean nothing. I mean, it's something a lot of you people that watch don't like tobacco. Some of you do. Some of you still smoke cigarettes. No judgment. I think this isn't about the vape. I think it's about policing of your rights as an adult. So I just can't believe it. I'm just still shocked.
So I know there's 3 or 4 shops here in Tooele, one in Grantsville, who knows, however many else. So let's guesstimate 6 employees per. So yeah, handful of people be possibly without a job.
I know quite a few that will be without a job. I mean, this is something that I said forever. When you make a survival kit, buy lots of alcohol and ammo and tobacco, because in the time of emergency, it's a great trading tool.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to a friend, he said that cigarettes now are like $12 a pack. I can't even imagine that. But I don't know. I don't know. Pot addiction will make you want randomly and continuously the new high potency.
Vomit.
Oh, vomit?
Randomly and continuously. The new high potency is landing people in the ER.
You mean the government grown pot?
I don't know. And then he asked, this is from David, by the way.
David, sorry. Yeah.
Is this a Mormon idea?
Could be.
You know what? If I was throwing a dart, that's the one I'd bet on. I like freedom more than any other flavor. Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I mean, listen,
so would it be
Senator Plum and Representative Brady Brammer?
Mike says, I feel like logging off now. I wish laws like this were implemented to help the children growing. It's almost 3 a.m. here in my country. I have to go to sleep.
Oh,
hey, Dave. See you, sir. Keep up the good work. Great anchors. I will rewatch the program once again. Hey, thanks, Mike. Now, Mike is, he does the shorts for TikTok.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes. And he's Dave's tech guy, I think you'd call it.
Well, thanks for tuning in.
Yes. And Dave, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Mike. We could make one. All right, Dave, hear me out. So we make it smell like cordite and napalm. and we call it freedom. Would that be considered a flavor vape? You know, just that smell of cordite.
I don't know what you're talking about. What's cordite?
Cordite? That's what's in modern gunpowder.
And you would want to inhale it?
No, you just make it smell like it. So you can call it freedom. So it can be like on Apocalypse Now. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
3 people voted against it on the third try.
Okay, who voted against it? So everyone else is that just on senators?
3 Republicans voted against it.
Is that just on the Senate?
This is the results of the bill, Senate vote in the Senate. So let's see, shall we?
How many people voted against it in the House?
Senator Fillmore in Lincoln, Senator Hinkins.
Okay.
A lot didn't vote for either one. Senator Weiler voted against it. So who voted for it? Dan Thatcher didn't. He didn't vote.
Yeah.
McKay voted for it.
What? Oh, really?
I know.
Shock.
Settle down. I'm looking for our senator. Senator Sandel voted for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a question to ask him next week.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to hear the inside scoop on it because they had specialists in there. They had doctors in there.
I'm going to say this. It'll probably draw a lot of kids away from vaping, but kids are going to do stuff that kids think are cool that goes against their parents. So
their parents aren't going to be able to get it. So where are they going to get it from?
I imagine.
Because according to this, they're getting it from their parents.
I imagine we'll see smoking take a slight rise again amongst high schoolers unless that smell has become unpopular enough to where they leave it alone, which is what I'm going to hope for it. I'm hoping and praying. I hope it works. I hope all their dreams come true. And that right there is the fix for Utah. I hope so. And it sounds like Nicolene might be here.
Yeah. Should be just on time.
I hear the alarm going off.
Dog alarm.
Yep.
Now, Nicolene's probably one of those people that doesn't care either way.
Maybe,
a lot of people don't understand vaping, period. So this...
Maybe Nicolene does, but I'm excited really to talk to her about our upcoming session, like what plan she has. I'm sure she's been, contacted by people and told to expect some stuff. So she is here and we'll bring her on camera here in uno momento. Yeah, go get the door.
Hi, friend.
Hi, come on in. Have a seat. How are you doing?
Good. I decided to be festive today.
I like it.
Yeah, we had Thanksgiving. It's time.
Yes, I've been Christmas.
I did my nails.
Oh, how cute.
I did
Those
too.
are so cute. I love it. That's fun.
And candy cane.
Okay.
I did my nails too, but
Way to go.
it already
Yeah,
got
you right down to the nub.
worn off.
How do you get a manicure like that where it looks like,
It's like
they've been
this?
chewed on
That's
by a
called-
small animal?
That's called a man.
My son has those same
Manicure.
nails. They're little nubs. You are cute.
Oh,
Yes.
well, I thought it was so fun because tomorrow is the Christmas parade in the city.
That's right. That's right. The
Yeah.
Chambers
Exactly.
does that, right?
Mhm. So I thought it was a good day to dress up, get everybody in the mood.
So, hey,
Perfect.
Twilla County, get out to the parade tomorrow for the Christmas parade. And I know the Chamber of Commerce does it every year, and it's a huge event. And then does Grantsville do one tomorrow night? The Christmas
They do.
lights?
It's the Christmas lights one.
So
Yeah.
everybody that wants to see a light parade where they decorate their vehicles in light, and it's so much fun. Talk about living in a small town. It just, all the people, and it's such a good time. And usually someone's selling hot chocolate, and there's so many fun lights, and Santa is there, and you get to
Perfect.
meet Santa after the fact and get hot chocolate. It's usually at the fire station. I used to do it with the pageants
Yeah.
back in the day.
I've been on the TikToks. I've stumbled onto the Krampus
You sound
section.
like my grandpa. Been on the TikToks, eh?
On the TikTok.
What are those kids up to?
But they've got Krampus over in Norway. It's like parades where these guys dress up like it looks amazing. They dress up like scary monsters.
Like the devil.
Well, that's
Krampus is terrifying.
Kind of what Krampus is.
I'm sitting here going, who is that?
Yeah,
I don't even know.
He's
Krampus.
the one in Europe that they would tell children if you were naughty. Santa didn't visit, Krampus did.
Oh, I see. He's the counter.
He's a Nightmare on Elm Street.
And they have a parade for him. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
all over the place. And so they've been recording it. And so it looks like that.
Oh,
And
that is frightening.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to go to that.
They do.
I hope all the children are good.
If you were a mass murderer, that's the last place.
Supposedly, if you're a bad kid, he kidnaps you. But
Oh my
like you can
goodness.
watch them, and
So it's literally something out of a horror movie. I mean,
Oh,
that is,
It
yeah.
literally is a horror movie. There's a lot of them.
yeah, well,
Wow.
they've made
Horror
horror
films
movies
called
about it. But
Krampus.
it's an old legend that Krampus was what they scared you to be good. Because us Americans, we just said you'll get coal if you're bad. But they said this horn
wish
guy,
I got coal.
They took it
That's
to
worth a
another
ton of money.
level.
yeah, he'll kidnap you.
Yeah, seriously.
And you're
bad, we'll give
the
you
federal
a
government's
bunch of
starving
gold.
us out of our coal right now. Like we totally
pull
want
your
coal.
mic right up to you.
Oh, this one. Okay.
Yep.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
I'm sure it goes back to even like pre-Christian days, kind of like the Fey days. That it's probably a holdover from that, a mix in that got brought in when Christianity came there. But the parades look awesome. They do them at night. The guys walking around in the scary costumes, and everyone lines up and brings their kids out to see it.
I can honestly say I don't think I would. I wouldn't want my child to have
No.
nightmares. But like you said,
But what
it's a
about-
tradition. It's a
And
tradition.
what about Halloween? I mean,
yeah,
would you
that's
let
true.
your
It's not my
kids-
favorite holiday. I'm not gonna lie.
oh,
It's
I
not.
love Halloween.
No,
because Halloween's-
it's fun for all the cultural and like the community aspect and the fall time and all that kind of stuff. But I just never have been into the creepies. Like I'm just, I have a hard time with it.
I love it. I love it
I
when the
use it
little
as an
kids
excuse
come
to
up.
dress up cute and be my
It's-
favorite
See,
character.
I do
but
the
never
rebellious
scary
Halloween
stuff.
vibe. Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I'm going to be an angel for Halloween. Or
Yeah.
like, I'm the Halloween rebel, right?
Yeah.
I'm the non-scary Halloween person.
I like
I
little
have a
kids.
pumpkin. I'm going to be a pumpkin or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. or
Nicolene,
something.
I wanted to.
So yes,
This is Nicolene Peck.
Nicolene Peck. She's the new state representative for House 28.
I want to bring up this bill.
Oh well, yeah. Let's bring it up in a minute because I want to first congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job. I know we were both rooting for you. I don't know the other person running, so maybe that was unfair to him that I didn't know him.
I think
so
a
I
lot of
rooted
people
for
did
you.
not know him, actually, to be fair.
And that's
he didn't get out much.
that's a tough thing. And
yeah.
maybe, maybe here in Tooele, the Democrats didn't do a hard push, whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm happy you got in.
You worked really hard.
You've got
I did.
not just that, but you've got a pedigree about you when it comes to managing kids and so I think you'll definitely be an asset to the
Well,
state.
families. I mean, you've
Yeah.
been an asset to the county regarding your involvement with families and the world. I said your world we're now as far as families and that oneness and listening to a child and having a very, very close-knit family unit
Mhm.
that is what God intended it to be, the nucleus, the whole structure for a child. So they go into the world competent and connected and
Well, that's our
just
future,
healthy.
isn't it? I mean,
It
that's
is.
our future. And I think every parent knows that. And they think, okay, I know I'm forming the future. But then it gets down to, but what have I been raised with? What do I know? What am I afraid of? What's happening around me?
How do I
There's a-
protect them from the outside?
Yeah, there's a lot
culture.
of panicking that happens. There's a lot. And people actually have a lack of skill development in that area. And so it actually has been a privilege. I tell people all the time, get a little choked up, but they'll thank me for work that I do in that area. And I'll always just feel like, it's such an honor to help people with the thing that they care about more than anything else, which is
true.
their family. Like it is such an honor that I feel like, don't even thank me because I feel like it's a privilege.
So you've discovered that find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Exactly.
So
You also never sleep a full night in your life.
I want to come up with a new term. I want to call you a bicycle motor mechanic.
A bicycle.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
you
just
got to
random.
explain that.
That's
Yeah.
Well, what's a bicycle motor?
Okay, well, I don't have one of those e-bikes, but the pedal. Yeah, the pedals.
The child.
What the hell where are you going?
So the child is
Mayday,
the bicycle
mayday.
motor, and so I'm
You
I'm
give
helping
the
to
child a
repair the
tune-up.
child. Oh, okay. I get it.
There it is.
That actually
Holly,
was some pretty deep thinking there,
Yeah,
Jared.
that's a
Holly,
That
long,
was
long
deep.
way to the well
Yeah.
there.
Dude, I'm telling you what, sometimes
You take
I'm
the
a
scenic
poet and
route.
I didn't know that I was.
I like that.
So
Bicycle motor mechanic. I'll remember that.
I used to say tricycle motors, but
what exactly now you're elected and
Yes.
you're already involved at the legislature anyway, but
Yeah.
what exactly happens now? How much do you know about upcoming bills or session? Like, do you have anybody walking you through it, or is it just a
Okay, so
trial
it's a
by
little
fire?
bumpy. I'm not going to lie. It's a little bumpy. So I knew how it went. And I mean, how a lot of things went in comparison to the other freshmen. One thing you should know is this is a very large freshman class. We're tying for the largest freshman class to ever
I
come
know
in.
I saw the picture of you guys on there. You look like a mob.
Yeah, we're going to make up 1/4 of the body. So that's
Wow.
So that
actually
just
pretty
means
exciting.
These are newly elected reps that have never served up there before.
Now, if you
Right.
were in Wyoming, that'd be half a person. But here in Utah, we have a little more population.
Exactly. So there's going to be 19 of us, and they have to get us all transitioned in. They have to get the other people that aren't going to stay there out of all their space and all their things. And then they have to give us access to things, and they had to wait for a while until the canvassing was done with the vote. So there's the vote, and then comes the canvass after the vote.
Were there close races that they had to double check?
Even so, there's just a rule that they're not going to give us access to everything up there until the canvassing is
that'd
complete.
be awful to say something
Right.
happened and they've got to be like, oh no.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, too late, I
Yank
already
it.
read everything. I know where the aliens are.
Right. And technically, I haven't taken my oath of office yet. So that's not going to happen until
January
the first day. Yeah. So, well, and actually, I don't know if it's January 1st. They consider me a rep as of January 1st, but I don't think I actually take the oath until the first day of the session.
And
I'm
when
pretty
does that
sure
start?
that's the 21st of January.
21st. So the day
Yeah.
after Trump takes.
And so I don't think I'll be able to move in up there at the Capitol into like the office space or any of that kind
So
of
you'll be
stuff until the
taking your
first.
oath with your box and the potted plant.
So
and
do
that-
they
Yeah,
assign you
Your-
interns and things like
the
that?
Nicolene Peck, like little nameplate poking out the
All
other
right,
side.
settle down.
Right, exactly. Well, hopefully they give me one of those because I didn't get one.
Do they assign you interns and things like that you get to know beforehand, or is it something you show up your first day? These are your interns.
Oh, that's a really good question. So they do have a hiring process for interns up there. So they have a certain person who's over HR, and that person will go and to certain colleges. So they do like UVU and BYU and U of U and USU and, different, maybe Weber as well, some of the main universities in the state. And they will allow them to like vet and contribute a certain number to a pool that could potentially be hired. And then what happens is they've got an HR person that will go and interview them again and then extend invitations for them to be the interns. And then basically what they have to do is kind of like matchmaking. It's like this Yenta thing where
Oh,
they
I'm
have
sure.
they have to go, okay.
Who would work
which
best with
intern would-
Nicolene?
Yeah, okay. So this person, do they want to be involved in things related to probably families and children? And are they good on maybe rural issues? And you know what I mean? And how would they fit in? Or what do they want to learn about? Because the other thing is with your intern, not only are they supposed to help you, but you're supposed to be training
It's in
them.
the field training.
Yeah.
Are they paid?
They do pay them. I don't pay them, but the colleges actually pay them. I don't even think the state pays them.
I see.
So the colleges have programs that are part of, maybe political science degrees, and stuff like that.
All those very important degrees that we don't have too many people that practice.
People fight
We
to
really
be
need to get
interns.
more.
Yeah, my son actually has a political science degree. So
Good.
yeah.
But
What does he do with it?
Do you know, actually, he just can think like crazy, and he was going to go into law, and then he switched gears, and he instead has kind of managed different businesses and different things like that, but he just can think in a different way.
I
think
minored in poli-sci and I was criminal justice major, and I absolutely loved it because I learned about the social work of the world and the politics and civic structure and, political law. And I thought it was very resourceful and beneficial, but it would
Mhm.
never be a major of mine. It was a minor and an interest, but I've used it far more.
Well, and I mean, you can sit and discuss with him forever about things, and he can like quote the Constitution. You'd be like, oh, what amendment this and or what does the Constitution say about that? Well, it says, I mean, he just, he has an understanding of freedom in our country and stuff like that. And so I honestly thought he'd be the one getting into political office, not me.
But I've seen the
political
curriculum that you
office.
do and the work that you
So-
do with families. And a lot of that does have to do with Constitution and freedom. So he's been learning since he was young.
It's true, because it's called self-government. So that's true. So to go back to your other
the dream.
question about, right, it is that, but it starts in the family, and we can do
It
stuff
does.
there. We
It
can do
does.
stuff
Like
there.
I told you before,
Yeah.
you're the foundation if we want liberty.
Well, and that's going to still always be, I mean, of course, my family is going to be my number one top priority, but then we have my work that I do to help families, because that's my kind of full-time thing, right? And the legislative thing is a part-time, well, they call it a part-time thing, but it's really not a
No.
part-time thing. It's really like an additional full-time job, but then that will be something that then I add on to that. And so I really do anticipate that, like the principles of self-government and all those things, I mean, obviously those are part of my foundation. They're going to be coming into how I analyze bills and stuff like that, which I think is going to be beneficial. But yeah, no, we don't have access to a lot of things yet. We barely got this last week our legislative emails. So I've got an email that's official for the legislature now. So that's
You
exciting.
want to give it out?
Yeah, I mean, I can. It's just npec@le.utah.gov.
Excellent.
Yeah, super easy.
So what you're saying is you got to go through all these steps. So they give you an email and then they'll give you access. You probably learn about aliens after you're signed in.
No.
But do you think that the robed goat mask party is before or after the signing in?
You are just
I'll
I'm
let
just
you know,
wondering.
Jared, when that shows
Good.
up. Okay,
Good.
I'll let you know.
so
Good.
you're
Sneak
a
some
big
pictures.
proponent of individual liberties.
Uh-huh.
Senate Bill 61 passed last March, and we were just discussing it on our show because it went under the radar.
Okay, instead of
regarding
throwing
these
the vapes.
Flavored vapes,
Yeah.
Okay.
which
The
this
binkies.
this picks up January 1st, goes into effect. It's going to probably put 3 businesses in Tooele out almost automatically.
Or it's gonna
Um,
drastically change their model, and
It's going to hurt them.
it is going to be financially damaging to them. But I think more. I am.
Let me finish my question.
Oh, sorry.
So, under the guise of, hey, this could hurt teenagers in the wrong hands, just
Mhm.
like alcohol does and firearms does. But this is taking parents' rights away that use the product. And
Oh, you mean for them
the
not being
people
able to get it?
Yeah, to put
Okay.
an actual ban on it, making it illegal to sell. So they're going to go to Mexico, to Nevada.
People get creative, don't they?
They
Do you
do,
want a
and they
vape?
will, because nicotine's addictive. Tobacco's
Tell
addictive.
me the number again. I'm looking it up while you're talking.
It's Senate Bill 61.
Now, of course,
Okay.
It was
Nicolene
sponsored
wasn't
by
there.
a Democrat, and
she wasn't there.
a lot
in
of
the House.
senators
Oh,
sustained
Plum.
their vote,
Okay.
so they didn't even vote. But Todd Weiler was a strong no against it
Mhm.
because he said, this is taking people's right. You're going to hurt businesses. I mean, he said everything I just basically said.
Mhm.
And this I didn't even pay attention to because vape's not on my radar. But for someone that brought it up to me, was like, health department's coming in to seize all flavored vapes on December 31st from these shops. So I went and talked to the shop owners,
Mhm.
and they're hurting. They're going to be hurting. They had protesters up there. They had petitions signed by tons of people who quit smoking tobacco and went to vaping. And you have to be 21 to even walk in the establishment. So they're doing everything they can. And rather than the state coming in and saying, hey, we need a proper disposal of these items so teenagers aren't digging in your dumpsters,
Mhm.
we need stronger punishments for teenagers caught with vapes, or even going after the parents when a teenager has a vape, anything. Rather than enforcing the laws we already have on the books, they created a law that says, sorry, nobody gets this. So I'm just curious, like, I don't know, as a legislator, I would, Todd Weiler was like, this, you're taking people's independence. And, you can, how are you going to stop teenagers from drinking alcohol It's already illegal. But what do you do? Ban alcohol? Has bans ever worked? So I'm curious.
So they can sell vapes that are not flavored.
Yeah, tobacco flavor and menthol. So no different than, say, cigarettes.
Right.
But people
So they
who
didn't technically ban the sale of the vapes, the cartridges. They just banned the flavored ones, probably because of all the tricking that was happening with the kids.
Those are the only ones.
They're not even advertised. You can't advertise them.
No one's going to buy a tobacco flavored vape.
Nobody.
It tastes like the south end of a northbound cat.
Okay, yeah, because I'm not familiar with the whole vape everything.
Mental image.
Okay.
Directions are hard. Anyway, for my opinion is, regardless,
me and Dave are going to start one though.
We don't like bans. This to me feels like overreach on the government, not the governor. He did sign it. It goes into law on January 1. I mean, I didn't even know about it until a few days ago. So it's not like it got a lot of attention, but I think that I would love to. I mean, I don't know if that was the ban alcohol. We know what happened when you do that. So I don't know
if this was the proper method to keep the children safe, right? Because I think that was the main thing that they were probably pushing for, is the protection of the children. I'm looking, okay, it's Senator Plum, and she's a physician,
and a Democrat,
she's super into the protection of children, which is good.
She's
sometimes,
probably
and then
a fine
sometimes,
senator, and I'm 100%.
She is a Democrat. That's true.
I'm sure she's very well meaning on this.
There's a lot. I can't read this as fast. There's a lot of new underlines in here.
Yeah, we don't need to.
It's non-FDA approved vapes are banned if they're not, and flavors, and then stores. There's a registry put into place, a vape registry.
So if someone buys a vape that's flavored, they have to register it, or if they're going to keep it in their store,
they can't keep it in their store
because they can't keep.
Health department comes and takes all the product on December 31st, according to the shop
owner. You have
owner.
to register it. You have to.
But the fact they added registry to the bill, this is out of left field. We just were talking about it in the beginning. Well, it's brand new to me.
And these are nicotine vapes. Yes. So they're nicotine vapes with a flavor. That's what we're talking about.
Flavored tobacco.
So they're technically equal to the type of nicotine that would be in like a cigarette or something. Or maybe even slightly less or something.
No, I'm
more.
I'm ambivalent on this. Okay. As a vaping person, I'm ambivalent. I would. Like, I don't like laws. It seems like our country lately has moved towards legislation on the point of sale instead of legislation on the point of purchase, which is fine. It's a different model of the way legislation works.
Going after the businesses.
I would like to see them right in there, because vapes, that has more nicotine in it than cigarettes does.
Oh, okay.
But it has no chemicals like tar.
Well, it has chemicals. We don't know what chemicals are in it. And we do know that cigarettes are bad. The vapes are, school's out on whether it's bad. I'm sure it is.
It's addictive. And that's what it says on the
people
box.
have done studies on that. And I have seen studies on the harms of the vape.
And they're saying, they're not as bad as cigarettes, but still, we don't, even those studies.
There's kind of like urban legends on it too. Like people just say.
We don't know. They might be
enough.
They might be worse.
Right.
They honestly might. So if they came out and said, if Utah came out and said, you know what, you can have a vape if it's a nicotine-free vape that's flavored.
They'd have to ban cigarettes totally.
Well, no.
Meaning you're just breathing the flavor.
Just the flavor. And they did the nicotine-free. And that way, because believe me, that's something I want to break the habit.
Of the nicotine. Okay,
and so if they did that, maybe I'd feel a little better about it, because I do want to see it go away. And nicotine gum tastes just better than the south end of a northbound cat, but not much, and all that. I would like to see these things, and it's all personal. I'm a weak man, weak-willed, and whatever.
You're an adult who has a choice you like, no different than alcohol.
I appreciate the honesty.
Or any of that.
I appreciate you self-evaluating yourself in front of me and all of these people,
if you're
and
not
saying,
living a
"Listen,
Socratic life, you're failing."
Yeah, well, because we all have our own things that we deal with and we wish for, and whatever,
talk
right?
About my chocolate addiction next. Come on.
No, because then I'll have to talk about mine. I love chocolate.
That's the thing, though. As grown-ups, we should be able to do what we like as long as it's legal, right? But these laws are intrusive into your liberties. And this is just a small example. I don't know what's coming up in session. But I'm wondering.
Yeah, I know a few things,
Have
but I
these
don't know
people
everything.
considered? David Weiss wrote, "Can we ban McDonald's though? We know McDonald's is not
just
healthy.
because, like,
We
the
know
food is
people
not-
are getting heavy. That you choose to go there, just like you choose to go." But I compare a vape like in this sequence to owning a firearm or owning alcohol. I have to put it in. If I put it in my house, I got to know where my teenagers are and I got to keep them away from it. So I have to lock up the alcohol. I have to lock up the gun. That makes me a good parent and make sure my kids aren't going to school with it or using it with their friends. But I know a lot of teenagers that found ways to get alcohol when they were not 21.
So I think you've hit on something, and that is that so often people's excuse for why they have to make bills is because, well, but the parents aren't doing
their job.
Ooh, what if
their job.
Senator
And the thing
Plum-
is that that's a really sad state
How old
for
is
us to be
Senator
in,
Plum?
right?
It's not
Is
a free
she,
state.
Is she?
She's probably a little older. She's probably in her 50s.
So she may have a kid at home.
I don't know.
Vaping
Yeah, I don't know
away,
her.
and she just can't get him to break the habit. She's like, "All right, I got your number."
But do you see what
Somehow
I'm saying?
I doubt it, but I don't know.
That
I don't know.
The state is becoming the parent for you
Well, and see, but here's the problem.
using
though.
laws.
No, I agree with what you're saying 100% because there's a principle there that we're not adhering to, right? However, the problem is that right now the public school already, the model in the public school is that we will take care of everything. We will teach your children about sex. We will teach your children about how to be social and how to not, and we will teach you about all the things and about what to think about religion and about
And
what happened in
sexuality.
history and about what happened. And so we're going to teach them everything. And if there's a problem, we're going to provide a therapist for them. And so we're going to do everything right in the public schools. And so then the parents are like, oh, okay, well, the government's going to take care of it. Like, I'm so busy, I don't have to worry about it. And so then there's these parents too, who will come up there and testify. I've heard them where they'll say like, I can't monitor my child every second, and so then that's their excuse. And so then the lawmakers
and that
are
drives
like,
the school into doing more. I mean,
yeah. So do you see, it's like a vortex.
That's
We're
a
like
question.
stuck in this,
Yeah, I've been asking this question for a
mixing
while
pot.
because the schools have been taking over a lot of responsibilities
things that they shouldn't.
That they shouldn't. But then you got to ask yourself, was that foisted on them by a lot of parents?
Well, yeah, and I think you could go back and forth. It's like the chicken and the egg. Which one's the chicken? Which one's the egg? Right? I do think that the push for sex ed in the school happened prior to parents not doing as much with sex ed, if that makes sense. No, I'm not saying.
I mean, obviously, and
yeah, I mean, because that was a push early on, and that was a push from a very, very sexually liberal crowd.
Have they done the studies on whether, just a sidebar, and you may not know, but have they done the studies on whether sexual education has lowered the birth rate? Have they done a side by side, like this school has it, this school doesn't, but we need to do it schools that are in similar demographics and geography?
You'd also have to measure exactly what version of the programs that they're using. And we actually have a policy, what are they called? They basically do research and they check. And we have one of the world's top researchers in Utah, and she and her team actually research exclusively sex ed programs and their effectiveness, and like comprehensive sex ed programs.
Because we know DARE was a flop.
Oh, it was a big reverse. Yeah.
Do they measure what teen pregnancy and STDs in high schools? I mean, how do they measure if sex ed is working? By teen pregnancies and STDs?
Right. So this is the other thing is what they measure is not always
registry if you get it.
What they measure is not always accurate. So they might measure teen pregnancies, but if a person gets married when they're 18, they have a baby when they're 19, that still is considered a teen pregnancy.
But if she suspends,
so they don't have a factor in there.
Age.
They don't have a factor in there for if the person actually happened to be married, because some people do get married really young, like straight out of high school.
When I was in high school
and stuff like that,
they did measure based on kids leaving school and girls leaving school pregnant and dropping out, and they measured it by that. I know because a family member got pregnant during her senior year, but she stayed in, but they still counted the pregnancy. once she was out of the school system, they didn't count it.
I don't know how
As a
they're doing the
teenager.
data now, because all I know of is I have sat in meetings where there have been reports of the data to the education committee. And they have said things like, well, teen is from under 20 to, down to whatever. So basically, and they're like, and so our teen pregnancy rate is decreasing, or our teen pregnancy
that's
rate
crazy.
is
So everything
increasing.
from
But the one thing that
13
you need to
18
know
to
is
20 is none
that
of your
Utah
business.
does not have comprehensive sexuality education in the schools. We have abstinence-based sexual education, sex ed, not sexuality at all. In fact, that's a really bad term to put in anything educational, because it means how you like your sex. It's like your appetite for sex.
Oh, it's
And
your.
we do not want to be teaching that.
What's
Anyway,
changed,
and
though?
so-
What kind
when
of
did that
spice do you
change?
like with your meat?
Because we used to have Planned Parenthood was giving the curriculum in Utah.
Okay, so Planned Parenthood still actually contacts every single school every single year and asks them if they would like Planned Parenthood to come in and teach, either to adults or to students or to whatever. And do you want us to teach your health program and your sex ed program and whatever, and your maturation program? They still ask that. They told me that.
But back then, when I first was a delegate, our representative, Tooele's representative, John
Mhm.
Wright, I think was his name.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that was trying to push against getting sex ed out of school. And during that discussion, when I was researching it, I found that the curriculum provided back then, so this would be 2012, maybe, the curriculum back then was Planned Parenthood's curriculum.
I personally do not believe that anybody who offers abortions or who gets paid for, who gets funded by an abortion provider or anything like that should be allowed to teach in schools, because it is a conflict of interest.
Preach.
Yes.
Yeah, because that is something that they are getting put in front of a demographic to form them in a direction toward creating a money
Make
avenue.
them customers.
Exactly. And so I do not think that, in fact, there has been another state, I know for sure, Louisiana has passed a bill that no abortion providers can actually teach in the public schools, like whether it's maturation, sex ed, whatever.
I believe that got cleaned up in 2012.
I would love to see and I say they need to do it with.
It's not cleaned up.
I just mean the Planned Parenthood curriculum that they were going off
Oh,
of.
that they were using.
I mean, this guy lost his election because he was so anti-sex ed in schools. And I was like, hey, let's just come up with an agreement. Let's just change whoever you're getting your curriculum from, make it based on abstinence, but educate these kids on where babies come from.
Bring in the missionaries.
Well, I mean, everybody needs to know, right, where babies come from.
Yeah.
But you don't have to learn about every single way that somebody achieves sexual pleasure in order to get there.
Yeah, I think let people stumble into
Teach them
that
the science of it.
at year 4 of their marriage, when they, let's not
There
bring
you
them
go.
into the marriage with the. Well, here's what I'd like to see a study.
Yes,
I'd like to see a study
David,
where they
parents can opt out.
where they take the same, where they take the same age group. And I say, I would like to see one at 14, their first year of freshmanship, and at 16, the first time they get an automobile, across different schools, and find ones with matching demographics, geographics, things like that, so that they can do a test. And like Utah has an abstinence only, so they could find a school that matches Tooele's in somewhere that does a Planned Parenthood. I would like to see.
So we
what the
have one of
studies
the
produce.
lowest abortion rates in the nation. I
Uh-huh.
don't have the exact numbers for you right here. I was not prered for this discussion
Yeah,
today.
well, we could take you anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But
We're
we do have
doing
one.
aliens
We do
next,
have
so.
one of the lowest, teen birth rates. We also have one of the lowest abortion rates. So what those two things together tell is that we have less teens getting pregnant, because if we have a really low abortion rate and a low teen birth rate, that means that a lot of teens are not getting pregnant in our state. So that's actually a really good
That
thing.
is.
Yeah.
So let's compete
That
with
shows
somewhere
an
else. And
education
let's
level.
show that Bakersfield, California, hey, you're wrong on everything you do.
It's easy to prove them wrong because their rates are way different. And like New York rates and stuff like that, way different, way higher on a lot of those things. But what has been able to be proven by my friend Irene, who does these studies here in the state, and she tells them to people all over the world.
Well, we'll try to get her on the show.
Is that whether she will or not, I don't know. She's a super busy lady. She's hard to book. But I will say that she is incredibly smart cookie, and she has been able to prove the effectiveness of these programs. So she could tell you, if you said, okay, well, tell me about Second Step, or tell me about this program, or if you listed these different programs, she would be able to tell you which ones she has studied, and she would tell you which ones are effective versus not. And by and large, her studies, and I'm just going to say this is very broad, I can't speak for her, okay, but by and large, Irene Erickson's studies have proven that the comprehensive sexuality education that is pushed by all of the, SECUS, Hugh Hefner, Planned Parenthood, that, and it's constantly pushed at the states. The Democrats try almost every year to create
Hugh
a bill with
Hefner's
that.
out there, or was out there,
his foundation,
shopping for new ladies.
He funded a lot of that movement.
Really?
With
He did?
Oh, yes.
Why would he do something like that? It's not like he stands to gain when they turn awry and graduate high school and then go become one of his live-in roommates.
There you go.
He's dead. So
anyway, he's dead, and now his daughter runs his empire, which grosses me out.
But she took.
I haven't seen a magazine.
She took nudity
in
out of the magazine, like she.
Okay, I don't know because I don't read it.
Men only get it for the articles anyway.
Okay, well, they still have a ton of money in the foundation, and it's still floating around out there. Anyway, so somebody is saying,
David asked, "Can parents decide?" And when I said parents can opt out, as in my daughter
actually we're
is
an opt-in
in 7th
state.
grade, so you can opt in to have your child learn in health, sexual, what's it called, sex ed. You can have your 7th
opt in, or they can't
opt in. But as far as what Carrie is saying, safe and welcoming or pro LGBTQ schools, parents can't decide when the terms are intentionally clouded. That's true, but in health, it's not. In at least my daughter's health class, it's not, and my son's prior, that they didn't discuss that. What you're saying, like sexual preference and sexuality, basically they talk about the science, how you get pregnant. That's what they talk about, sexual education. So in our household, we are a pro-life family. And since my children are young, I've always taught them to preserve their bodies, because when you have sex, that's how you make babies. And you be prepared that when you have sex that you're going to have a baby. So make sure you understand you'll be a parent. And if they understand that so young, that they understand that's the science of it. I'm keeping love out of it. We discussed that. Save yourself for really a trusting relationship, because it makes babies and you don't want to go through that alone. And you're too young. And
you have to make the picture broader than just the act of sex, right? It's got to be bigger than that.
It's
Absolutely.
Just the science of it is this is how babies are made. So don't be surprised if you don't protect yourself, or if you just do it everywhere.
Well, and you have to be willing to accept your consequence, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for
and
sure. If
the
that's
accountability.
the direction you're going.
So that's, since they were young, how we discussed it, and they've learned it at home. So not every family's that way. And I understood that when they were talking about pulling it in 2012, I believe it's 2012, to getting rid of sex ed. You need it because there's families out there that don't have these conversations. But what Carrie is getting at is there's now a social, cultural thing where the LGBTQ are trying to
because they're claiming it is their own. So just to give you an indicator on this. So last year there was a bill that was run by Tim Jimenez, actually.
David, you're going to hell.
Yes.
Anyway.
Dave's now pro McDonald's.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's the David.
I'm like, okay, I have to beat this guy.
I'm sorry.
All right.
So Dave, well, you did. Maybe you didn't. Dave was the old co-host here.
Okay.
Oh, no,
you got to go on.
Okay,
I'm so sorry about this.
So here we go. So there was a bill last year, and this bill was basically designed to do one thing. So we are an opt-in state for sex ed, which means that there has to be a permission slip the parents sign, right, to sign it for sex ed. So nowhere in the sex ed code, which is the 53G code in the state, nowhere in 53G does it say that teachers can teach human sexuality. In fact, it says you can't teach the intricacies of sex and all that kind of stuff. Okay, there's all the prohibitions of what you cannot teach. Yet it was discovered that in the permission slip, it said that the parents were giving the teacher permission to teach human sexuality, which if you look up the definition, I mean, the WHO even goes so far as to say that sexuality is like, you should experiment with all different kinds of things. And it gives you examples and it gives you, I mean, it's like, it's so perverse, right? Because it used to just mean related to like the birds and the bees. That's
Right.
that's what we used to think it meant.
The science.
Right, exactly. But now the term is corrupted because they always take terms that we're using and then turn them into something else.
To do this, like I could imagine.
Well,
I'm a
it's
gym
just
teacher.
in code.
I want to teach the kid to climb the rope and maybe run around the track 4 times. I'm really psyched, and then they read them that. Oh,
so anyway,
I don't want to talk about this with my friends. Why would I want to talk about it with teenagers?
So this particular language was incongruent with what was actually going to be taught. So what the parents were signing off on was different than what the code said could actually be taught. And so and Tim and I talked about this, and he was like, okay, I'm going to run a bill on this. And I said, this is great. And so he ended up running the bill. It did not get all the way through because it like kind of timed out before the whole 7 weeks ended. Okay. So it didn't get finished.
Taking over the bill?
Let her finish.
Anyway. And so, but here's the thing that happened. And this really shows you why this is an issue that we need to care about. Is he was really benign on it, like not assuming that any teachers are doing anything they shouldn't do. It's just like, here's a word, a term which doesn't match what is really supposed to be taught, but we don't know why it's here. So let's just clean it up. Like it was really, really presented like that, not attacking anybody's teaching or anything, because, for all we know, for all anybody knows, that's not being taught. Okay. The whole appetite for sex. So anyway, it goes to its first hearing. And here comes a health teacher, and she says on the record, well, don't remove this term, because if parents don't sign off on this term, then I can't teach all this LGBT stuff and all these different things. And she starts listing. And I was like, holy cow. They are actually thinking that this term right here negates all of the other things that you're not supposed to teach.
Amazing.
So like day 4 is the whips and chains, and day 5
because actually human sexuality now, according to some definitions, would be BDSM, all that kind of stuff. It would be because it's how you like it, and that's what it basically boils down to.
You're supposed to discover that
I'm
in year
not
4
saying
of
that
your
that's
marriage.
what that teacher was teaching. I'm not saying that that's what she was teaching, but the fact that she came and she felt like she needed to be a voice for LGBT, just like was listed, but even went further than that. And I was like, wow, this term is a problem. Even if it's just in that one classroom, maybe it was no other classrooms. I don't know. But I'm guessing if one person showed up, there's got to be other people misunderstanding.
Even if there's just one, you got to protect those kids that this lady's trying to embark her knowledge on.
And so each word makes a difference. Words make a difference. So, people get all hung up on different things that happen at the legislature. And it really does boil down to, what does it mean? In almost every piece of legislation, there's definitions there. And the state says, well, according to us, here's the definition. Well, human sexuality is not defined in code. And so then what happens if the word is used is it then falls upon the responsibility of whoever's job it is to teach that thing or to do that thing. To
interpret it.
To go, well, what does this mean? And then they Google it and look it up and whatever it means.
We have a lot of young people confused, and sexuality, especially in junior high, is when a lot of kids who may be a member of the LGBTQ start to discover that they might be gay or queer or trans or whatever. But again, we have to go back to, teachers shouldn't decide that or teach it. This is back in the home. And I'm sad that parents don't have an open flow of communication with their child who's confused, because I don't want this in the hands of teachers. Now, I understand that if a child is gay and he's male, he may not understand how sexuality would be for him or what it would look like for him. But to go and have teachers teaching what gay sex looks like, what heterosexual sex looks like. I mean, it so follows a line that could easily hurt a child or help a child or create.
Well, okay, grooming. I mean, I worked with
That's
troubled
it.
youth, right?
That's
Okay,
the
and they
line.
lived with me. And there's a point where if you're the first person to tell them something, you actually are grooming them to think a certain way.
Absolutely.
And if the parents have not talked about, oh, you can do this really kinky thing, and because why are the parents going to go kinky, especially beginning with the children? Why would they?
Well, they
right?
might find it on the internet by a mistake.
Well, and so at some point they have to get to, okay, let's talk about the boundaries. Let's talk about what's normal. Let's talk about what's healthy. The parents need to go there. But if the teacher is just going to present it and they're not going to take a moral stance because they're afraid to take a moral stance and not say this is
it's
what's
a terrifying
healthier,
time
whatever.
in
And
our
they
culture.
and they present it as healthy, then then the child now is groomed to think they have to try it. So there you go. And this is why there's such a big fight over all of the sexual stuff, because it technically boils down to who is it that gets to groom and prepare the mindset of a child. And parents have a sacred trust. They
And
have a
if those
sacred
parents-
trust with their children. They,
if
they
they-
get to actually mold the
Let me
hearts and the
ask-
mind
let-
of the children. Or somebody else does, whoever
So
they turn them
let's-
over to.
Let's say a parent goes to their 14-year-old daughter and starts talking to them very explicitly. That could be considered abuse, and that parent could end up in trouble.
Actually, the child can get taken away for that.
but
at
the
school-
teacher
You've
can
hit
get
it.
legal permission to
Yes.
loophole that, and then
From the
for
parent who
any
doesn't actually
teacher-
have legal to be able to do that.
Yeah.
for any teacher who might have stumbled onto this, why would you want to do that? Why? I would
Because they see
that
it as
would
helping
chase-
a
that would-
child.
that would chase me away so fast. I mean, seriously, if I gave a class on it, I need 15 minutes. I need to say, look, one of your parts and your parts, they're not the same, but they fit together. And your parts, when they combine, make a little magical baby, and bing,
You got to teach them
have a
about
good day.
protection. You've got to teach them about how not to make a baby.
That's right.
But
Protection.
these teachers,
Now there's the God's caliber. That's a 45.
Here,
But anyway, so
We're
if you
still living on
really want to
time.
go
Stop.
deep,
gross. Okay, so there's
9
this
millimeters, okay.
this thing that teachers, their intent, I don't think is to hurt the child. Their intent is to help a child navigate through a crazy culture time that we're in, where kids are second guessing. Culture is telling us that LGBTQ is the new thing and that it's acceptable and you want to love your child. And teachers feel like if that child doesn't have support at home, they need to know that they're not okay. They're okay. They're normal if they're gay. It's not the end of the world. They're trying to share that with a child. But I don't think the intent of the teacher is to harm the child. But when we get back from it, it's a parent's job to navigate those waters with their child.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a teacher's, and it's not clubs and other kids. But parents can't do their job. Either, like David said, they're both working and they don't have that time, or they're very religious and they don't think that it's a good thing to teach their child, or if they're only teaching them a small bit and the child feels like free to come to the parent, they don't feel safe sharing with the parent that they might be gay or they might be trans. So they're looking for acceptance wherever they can. This is a really, really hard world to navigate in now. This is not the world we grew up in.
Because what we're really talking about here is just a whole bunch of social issues that are infused in all of the educational stuff, which is
Yes.
really, really tricky. And it comes in even more so with all of the devices that the children are carrying around, and
Absolutely.
they're having them at the school, and they're having, all this kind of stuff. Of course, I mean, we could talk about Tooele has a new policy that's coming out in January, and that's going to be a device policy, and there's a lot of debate about that, and there's going to be some bills about that.
That's going to be the whole state, right?
Well,
They're gonna ban
Tooele
phones.
is doing it for Tooele County. They've come up with a policy on this, and for the Tooele County schools. And then there's going to be a bill that's run in the state, and there was a press conference on that like a week and a half ago. But if you think of it, there's this point where you go, okay, well, where's the freedoms? Where's the privacies? What are the roles? Who are the people in all of this stuff for
What's
these
the
children?
bill going to be?
The bill would basically say that districts across the state need to create a policy, just as Tooele is doing. They're creating their policy of what they want to do in order to keep the children focused in school to help them with, because basically the attachment to the devices is like mental health nightmare.
But they're going
And
to
it's
ban
proven now.
Oh, seriously.
phones.
Yeah.
Mind
Yeah.
you, they're going to ban my child's phone. He doesn't have a phone, but hypothetically, ban his phone while they're making my child do all his work on a screen. And they're like, oh, this isn't hypocritical. And at a time when security is not beefed up in schools as much as, say, it needs to be, right? The only access a parent have to my child is through that device. And that's the only access my child has to calling 911 or calling me in the event of an emergency.
I mean, all the teachers have like a
But
button,
again,
and the phones will still be there
it's
in
a
the school because there's a
ban.
lot of teachers that are already currently doing it. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know that. I've had so many teachers reach out to me on this issue. You have no idea. And parents alike, all different socioeconomic classes in Tooele County. So far, every single one is like, yes. I don't know if you've read the book, The Anxious Generation, but I highly recommend it.
That's by
My child doesn't have a phone.
Is that
because of this
the,
reason.
because
is
you
that
know.
Greg
Because you know.
Lukianoff?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Lukianoff. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's great.
Wrote
no,
The Coddling of the American
Do you know
Mind.
what my
Yes.
son has to turn in
And-
his assignments? If he wants to turn them in during class, he's supposed to take a picture of it with his cell phone and then email it directly or put it on Google. Whatever.
Interesting.
Put it on.
And
And
I'm
obviously
thinking,
they're going to have to change
well,
that.
that's crazy.
That's
here's
obviously not
what
going
we're
to happen.
looking at.
Yeah.
The last 100 years, we are looking at the building of a new human, and it's been accelerated the last 10. A new human's being born where, as humans, we're going to have to discover our self-control, and we're going to have to discover it.
You mean our
Young.
self-government?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. We have discovered food. Everyone said there's too many humans. We're all going to starve. Their starvation is a non-issue for most of humanity
I know.
right now.
People still keep talking about it, but compared to the other
most
issues
of
that we're
humanity,
facing.
I mean,
That's one product of climate
There's-
change that has made a big difference. The earth getting warmer means more food grows.
But
well, more
yeah,
CO2 means more food grows too.
Yes.
Yeah, now they're
but-
trying to shoot CO2 into the ground,
Yes.
which is crazy.
You know,
And they got
I
fruit
mean-
It
not
doesn't
grow.
make sense.
Yeah.
But man doesn't make a lot of money.
That's what it's about. But also then they make this device, which it started out utilitarian in 2003 or the early 2000s. And then, when the iPhone came out, it exploded on the market. It became, and they're not forcing anything on us. They are giving us exactly what we want. Down to the advertising, down to the AI mapping they're doing with us.
Yeah.
It's exactly what we want.
What adults want.
No,
But they're catering to children
they're
in
not.
a way
they're,
that's dangerous.
they're-
Well, it's just all psychological.
They're giving us,
Yeah.
and I don't consider them evil. We've got to reach inside.
It's
We've
good
got
marketing, right?
to,
Yeah.
but it is. They
Mhm.
give you the advertisements you want. Pretty soon, you will not see an advertisement for something you're not interested
But you
in.
don't think it's evil? Even the people who created the iPhone wouldn't let their children own one
Sure, because
or an iPad because they knew
Yeah.
it was dangerous.
because
Their children
their
were all in
children-
Montessori schools and
they're
playing
not-
with wooden blocks.
they're
Yeah.
not
They never
the
did.
new human yet, and we've got to. I mean, we're going to sink or swim with this.
We're
have to.
sinking as a society.
We have to.
Well, and this is actually why people have and we're not the first country to say, okay, we've got a problem with the cell phones. We've got to get them out of the schools because they're not only ruining what the purpose of school is, they're also creating other problems, which if we can get some of the phones and stuff out of the children's hands for that many hours of the day, then will we need as many therapists in the school? Because the anxiety levels, the depression levels, the bullying, the suicide, all the stuff that ends up, factoring
Mhm.
into these devices is a really real thing. And in some other countries, they've said, okay, we're done with having the children have their phones all the time accessing during school hours. And you know what happens in every school that has done this? And even some of the teachers in Tooele County who have already put little shoe holders, those shoe things that you can put your shoes in.
The little clear numbers
Yeah,
that you hang
yeah.
on a closet.
And they
phone.
put their little phones in it at the start of class or even for the whole day. There are some teachers that do that and they'll give the children a little clip and they can come back and pick it up later at the end of the day. And these children are totally fine with it. They'll do it. And they're like, oh my word, the grades are going up.
Grades.
The grades are going up. The contention and cyberbullying is going down. The anxiety levels are decreasing.
And even the kids
depression
say
are
they're
decreasing.
more present. They enjoy class.
The kids actually like it. And you know what? It is actually the parents who are the ones who are pushing back the most, because they're like, because I want to have access to my child, which I understand.
You still
that.
have access to your child.
I understand that completely. But let me just tell you a story. I just spoke with a couple from Maryland. So people call me to talk to me. They'll pay to talk to me about things going on in their family and to get, some ideas on how to help them better self-govern at their homes. Okay. So I talked to this family from Maryland the other day. Now in Maryland, they don't get to have their cell phones. The children don't get to have their cell phones in school. Okay. And that's like the whole day, bell to bell. Okay. And they have a daughter. She has severe anxiety. She has severe depression. She is an incredibly violent person. And they said that when the school changed the policy, her violence no longer an issue at school. Her anxiety and depression no longer an issue at school. And they said, but when she comes home, if we try to take the phone from her at home, she gets so violent.
It's addiction.
And that's what I said. It's absolutely the signs of addiction. It's absolutely the signs of addiction.
It's like taking a flavored vape away from a grown-up.
And so it's uncanny actually how all these issues that we're talking about actually go together. Because on one hand, we're saying a Democrat wants to take vape away because it could hurt the children. And maybe some Republicans are saying, no, don't do that. But then Republicans saying you can't teach human sexuality in schools. And the Democrats saying, don't do that, because we need LGBT, whatever. And then on the phone issue, there's both sides of it too. And there's some people who are saying that they won't be able to have safety. And all the teachers are saying to me, oh my goodness, we all have phones. If there's a shooter, if there's a danger, if there's a whatever, we all have phones. If
there's a bad teacher, I want my child to record it.
Okay. So give your child, so Polaroids are back in style. So let's make digital cameras back in style.
Yeah. They've got
just give them,
that you can just
they have a pen. They have a pen that is a camera. You don't have to have a phone.
Cameras in every classroom.
And actually, a lot of schools do have that.
As a security measure.
They do have that. The teachers all have buttons. There's a lot more to it than people think. And I actually hate the idea of sending my child to school as a weapon for my political agenda.
I would just rather have cameras.
It is true. It is true that they can catch some things and that can be very beneficial and stuff like that. But for me to groom my child to be a weapon, to be a secret agent at the school, against the school, that means they probably shouldn't be there in the first place.
No, I don't like it either.
If that's the way it is.
Giving your kids a different mental benchmark than they're there to learn.
And I think
more drama. That's adding drama to the child. And if it's not a trustworthy environment, then probably the students should not be there. And that should be exposed.
For me, I think
I think those little pens or digital cameras could record just fine. And you wouldn't have to have the constant ping, 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 ping of somebody talking about how you look, somebody talking about some guy that likes you, somebody talking about.
I can't imagine what those kids say to each other.
Too much.
I just think the world starts and stops with teachers. My kids have had excellent experience with amazing, amazing teachers. Public high school
They're incredible
is a
ones.
big,
my family's full of them.
Yeah, public high school is a big shocker to my kid because he hasn't been around it. But I think it's beneficial that he doesn't have a cell phone. He does have a watch. So if there was an emergency, he could call me, but he can't sit and text his friend throughout class. It'd be too difficult. And he can't take phone calls because it's speaker. So he doesn't. So it inhibits him from that. Mm-hmm. He wants a phone so bad he can taste it. Just like I knew he would. And my husband are like, sorry, no.
It's kind of like a rite of passage in society. Like the children know it's like driving and dating and getting a phone. And
nowadays,
it's like one of these rite of passages things. No, they just want the phone.
Phone, but that's
driving the new rite
at
of
our
passage.
age. Yeah. That's how we found our friends. We get a car, I get to the way station quicker because that's where they'll be. Mm-hmm. And nowadays they're all on the phone or on the internet.
They don't even leave the house anymore.
Here's a fun thought for you. At the press conference, Senator Fillmore. He's the one who is going to be running this bill. He and Representative Welton are going to be doing this bill. And they were at the press conference. And he said, when I was a child, if I wanted to say something to somebody in school, I had to write it on a paper. And he's like, yeah. And then I had to pass it. And they had to get them. It could take a couple of class periods to actually make it to the person that it was supposed to go to, right? And if the teacher caught it, the teacher would read it in front of the class
of 25 people,
and they would
not
know
the entire world.
Well,
they would know. I wrote on a desk to a boy. We both had chemistry. I was first period. He was second period. I had no idea who he was. He called himself Zeus. I called myself Venus. And we wrote on the desk day after day to each other. And then there was a point where I came to class. No, I know. Then there was a point where I came to class one day, and the teacher was like, "Hey, Venus," and start saying, "How about let's hear what's on your desk?" And I was like, oh, red face, like, oh my goodness, I've been found out. But nowadays, if someone is to hear something personal that happened on your phone, that could be like, some people could call that trauma, but look how people just dealt with that back then. It was like, I tried to do something sneaky and to get a message, and now I have to hear it in front of the class, but then they just made it through. They didn't go and get suicidal because of it. You learned how to accept embarrassment.
Yeah. Did you know
because it's like ping, 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 ping. No, I didn't.
Did he know who Venus was?
No.
This is the whole
about the cutest damn story I've ever heard in my whole life.
I ended up dating him too after that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it turned into an actual.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was funny.
So this is the thing. This is such a double-edged sword, because I was just thinking security aspects, not. My child was like embarrassed by a teacher,
mm-hmm.
and the teacher is an old school teacher, and was calling on him. Because I can picture this perfectly when I was in high school. If I wasn't paying attention, the teacher called on me.
Of course,
that's
what they used to do.
Started paying attention, because I knew any minute this teacher's going to call on me, and I had to stay attentive in my class. I could see what his teacher was doing, and his grade reflected he wasn't paying much attention in class. In fact, he started feeling embarrassed and bullied, and I'm sitting here as a parent going, "It's not bullying. What the teacher is doing
is bringing to your attention
that you're not, and I need you to understand that." And he had a meeting with his teacher to discuss it. I was not present because I wanted him to handle it. It was amazing. He got to talk to his teacher and understand exactly what she was trying to do and why she's beloved by so many students, because she does take an active interest in students. And he came home a changed kid. Because if I would have gotten involved, then I'm taking this lesson away from him.
So you're actually hitting on something I think is really important with this upcoming bill. And I know we have jumped bill to bill to bill to bill tonight, but this bill is going to definitely be all over the news. And I'm sure people will have hot opinions on it. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this over the course of the session. But this is one thing that I'm looking at is they are employed with government funds. The teachers, the schools are employed with government funds to have certain outcomes, academic outcomes. Okay. And they have to create rules and structures to make sure that those academic outcomes happen. And if we go in there saying your job is to actually make sure that my child answers every one of my texts every 5 seconds, then that actually goes outside of the scope of what they are actually hired by the government to do in that position.
From the dawn of teaching.
And
that's
so
happened.
It's changed the consumer mindset on this, has changed the roles in that public education model. And so, and I love that we're going into parents' choice more and all of this kind of stuff. I shouldn't say more, homeschool has always been a thing and whatever, but we're really going, no, that's a legitimate option, especially since COVID, right? Like, just go for it. Do whatever you want. You are the consumer. But when it comes to your child is there and they have a certain job that they have to do, there comes a point where they have to say, but this is the way we do it.
Right.
And the parent has to honor it or get out.
Yeah.
And
you
that's
have options.
and that's actually how it has to be. And so I know that there are people that are going to have a hard time with this bill. Like I said, so far I haven't heard from any of them. All the people in Tooele who've contacted me, and by the way, they have contacted me. I have not reached out. They have been calling me. What do you think about this? Do you know about this? And I'm like, whoa, people are watching. People know this bill is coming, and they're all excited about it. They all want it to happen because of the data that proves what happens when this
think
happens.
it's great. And now we just got to have parents who can figure out how to monitor that use at home, keep it timely and controlled.
I think the second a parent buys their child a cell phone, they open a Pandora's box.
And they don't know till a couple years later.
Yeah.
That's like this.
The longer you can hold out, the better it will be.
Seriously, you're
I think now we
100%
know.
right.
So here's the deal. And I kept saying this for years. We are raising this generation of children as a social experiment. This has never been done. That we put in a 10-year-old in a 9-year-old's hands, something that can control them. And they don't know that if I don't govern this, if I don't make rules for this, then it will govern me. It will control me.
Every child.
They don't know. And that's an experiment socially we just launched on. And now we're going, oh, whoa, how do we backstep this?
Well, every generation is a social experiment. We're all Gen Xers.
Yeah, but nothing like this.
We're the social
Technology.
experiment of can the kid manage itself at a younger age?
Oh, and I love that the answer is no.
It is a no.
I love that the answer is no, because you know what? The radical feminists, the Margaret Sangers and all that, they think a baby should be autonomous from birth.
Yes.
And this proves they can't be.
Which one of it's our age who was left as latchkey kids, who was going home at 10 years old and figuring its own.
We're on our bikes for till dark.
Out.
And to be honest, we had a huge moral decline.
We did, but
there were things happening in the fields behind houses that were woo.
Which is why our group has raised this batch of kids.
We're more protective.
We weren't as protected. Parents.
Yeah.
And remember, the group that raised us was the silent generation, the generation between the greatest and the boomers.
My parents were boomers.
Your parents were boomers?
Yeah.
Yeah, they might be.
The boomers raised Gen X.
Well, not always. Sometimes prophets did.
Yeah, the silent or prophets.
A prophet is a boomer. Prophets and boomers are the same, but sometimes the silent generation raised.
Yeah, the silent is the.
If your parents were old.
Yeah, mine weren't.
Yeah, my dad was.
Boomers.
My mom is still not old.
My dad was right at the end of boomers, but they raised us and they were the artists. Boomers are artists.
My parents were both
boomers
working.
Were prophets. Artists.
No, boomers are artists.
Artists were the ones who came of age, like adolescence. The
greatest was heroes.
Yes, those were heroes.
Silent were the
artist.
No.
That was the next ones. The teenagers. My in-laws were artist generation.
What?
And then my parents
in the
were
60s?
My parents were boomer prophets. And then I'm a nomad. Gen Xer.
We're nomads.
Nomad Gen Xer.
This is from the fourth turning.
Yes. And then my children are all hero generation, but now we have new artist generation coming in. Potentially, right? Yeah.
Does this hero generation, because my kid's in that, do they live up to it?
Well, because they can fight for one way or the other. That's what happens.
The bad thing is we've already moved through the age where we're past the nominal age for their heroic side to show, which concerns me because that's usually a war fighting, a young man, an 18.
Yeah, and we're not sure our catalyst till after it happens, so we don't know.
Older,
we haven't raised kids to be patriotic like we were raised to be. I mean, some parents have.
If they're older, that means it may be a totally different problem that we don't even know how to comprehend.
It's possible. We could also have a larger hero generation that forms at this time, which can occur, which could mean it spans a larger, stretch of time rather than the normal just 20 years, because that happens sometimes.
Like this.
Sometimes. But we do have a new generation of parents now. We've got these younger parents, which, they're actually like the millennials, right? Now the millennials are having children and they're raising children, and these millennials are starting to see things a little bit differently. They're like, okay, I think I might have been overprotected. And so I think I'm going to pull back a little bit on protection, but I also think that I want my children to not be attached to all that stuff that our generation was attached to. And so they're actually oftentimes a little bit more open about removing some of that technology and stuff.
They're removing
because they're like,
stuff.
I think that wasn't good for us. And they're starting to see that wasn't good for us. Just like as Gen Xers, we were like, all of the flash dance, dirty dancing, was not actually good for our like social development.
Or the latchkey
I
idea.
know parents
They're
are
like,
The
hello,
latchkey.
everyone just went sexual, right? And we had
There
to all
was-
like reform.
There was a bit
know,
of that,
from-
but I reflect back on it. It was still rather innocent compared to what I've heard high school.
100%, because
The high schoolers
nobody got
today,
into
the stuff they
There
talk
was so
about.
much sex
I am
abuse,
like,
though.
I'm like,
there was.
if I
There
was
still is.
if
Yeah.
I was 14 and half of the subjects came up that these kids are way too intimately familiar with, we'd have thought that person was a weird outcast.
Oh, wacko.
Yeah, now it used to be that they would the sex abuse was like it would be groomed and a little bit more consensual. Now there's just like the trafficking version of it, which is
Well,
just
right there
you know.
on that device, you're inviting strangers into your child's house. So my kids have iPads. I have to monitor what they do on them all the time, because if I take my kid's iPad away, it's like I'm taking crack away from an addict. Their behavior changes. They sulk, they pout, they freak out. They'll do anything to have it back.
So you know.
So I'm like, okay, this is out. You're only going to get it on this day or this day for this long,
Good for you.
and hand it over every night so I can see exactly what you've done today. And I've got my ways, so don't even try it. But what I'm getting to is, like, I try to tell my daughter, I'm inviting strangers from all over the world into our home every single time this is turned on, and I'm trusting you not to let them in. Why on earth would we not want to back up? My kids were on an iPad learning how to read at 2 years old. I've got my 18-month-old learning how to put letters to
Trace.
sounds and all that stuff. And I thought it was amazing.
Mm,
And then this trafficking deal,
mhm.
that got brought to light to me when they were probably 4 or 5 years old. And I was just
And it's
like,
just so easy to
"Ugh."
happen. Yeah.
And now, as parents, if we don't realize we've given an open door to every sicko out there,
There's like
Right
whole
to
groups
our
of people
kids.
that are missing.
always,
I don't wanna
they're
get-
going missing constantly,
Uh-huh.
and there's
And
no
lots-
bodies
and
found.
groups of children. Yeah, exactly. It's really disgusting.
We found
what
out
we're
it's a
facing.
commodity. Look at the parents
Yeah.
who are addicts selling their children.
Right. And so then we say, oh, why do the schools think they need to intervene? But then what is happening in the schools and how much sexual abuse is happening in the schools? Do you know that actually the least likely person to sexually abuse their kids, even though it does happen, the least likely person, according to data, is a biological mother or father.
Yeah, that's
That's the-
100%.
That's the least
That's why
likely.
you
A
don't get
boyfriend,
divorced.
whatever, right? A boyfriend, a stepdad, an uncle, a cousin, or whatever. You get
Stepdads
whatever.
are
More times
probably
out of
the
not,
scariest.
it's somebody that you know.
Well,
though.
the thing is, though, is guess what? School people at the schools, the janitors, the playground workers, the whatever. That those people. I mean, they actually. There's a ton of abuse that happens there, a ton. And then, of course, peer on peer is going to be your top, but it's not always classified as abuse.
Mhm.
But that's the number one, and I think it probably always has been, because there's just this ignorance, innocence that happens there.
Well,
with,
it came to light in our generation of the Catholic Church and all the stuff that was happening there, which blew the doors open off of religious leaders. And it's always happened, but in every single career, it happens.
because every person can be perverted.
Every
I mean, we're
person can
humans.
be. And
Well,
then
it's sad.
people
It's-
who do it to children are creating future
Mhm.
abusers in some cases, not
Mhm.
all, but some. And it's just, it keeps going in a bad circle. And so we're trying to catch up and make sure there's background checks and there's all these things on people that are trusted with our children. But I'm telling you, Sean Reyes and Underground Railroad blew my mind open to what's really out there with the trafficking.
Mhm.
And it all comes down sometimes to this device or an
Mhm.
Xbox, any place that opens your child to strangers.
Oh, the online gaming is huge.
Yes.
So many children are oh, you're so good at gaming. Let's meet up. And then boom, they're gone. No, it's a huge, big thing. I was at the UN 2 years ago.
Glenn Beck's son
No,
was
I-
a victim of that.
No, I have a niece.
And
Who
he's
was
got
a
high
victim.
profile security around him all the time. And he
Right.
did a whole show about, I had no clue until I went to get a drink of water downstairs at 3 a.m. that my child was on his Xbox getting groomed
Mhm.
potentially to go meet this person.
I know.
And he had no idea. And he's on top, his wife is an on
So-
top of it parent, especially.
Exactly. So get this. At the UN 2 years ago, they said, we want to keep children safe from being trafficked. And so the UN solution, very liberal solution, was that every girl needs to have a digital device, a cell phone, as early as possible in her like
With a
toddler
tracker on it?
years. Well, no, just as early. No, they didn't say anything about tracker.
What was the point of that?
Because if she has a device as early as possible, she won't get trafficked, they said.
That's insane.
Well, exactly. It's insane. There's always a miss and a
It's a
disconnect
direct
at the
line to the
UN.
traffickers.
But so what I'm saying, and so instead, what they really are saying is let's get them totally addicted because then it will be actually even easier, is really what they're saying. But that was their excuse for why they needed to give everyone that, and that they should all be, in on all the AI stuff and everything else. So I want to be a help to you with the computer thing, the tablet thing with your children. Let me just tell you what I did. And maybe you're already doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe you're already doing this. I'm a little bit old school. I'm a grandma now, right? My youngest is 20, so I'm kind of at that phase. But I had a station in my house where it was like right in the kitchen. Here's the computer. My sign into the computer was a really long, like a full sentence without spaces. It was like they'd never guess what it is, right? This big long thing. And I always had to sign them in. Now I know on the school laptop thingies or iPad thingies that might be easier said than done. But if you can say when you're at home, we use this, and you take the other thing when they come home from school,
The Chromebook.
Yeah. And you take that and say, no, you're going to do your thing here and I'm going to sign you in. And so you sign them into it and you just tell the school, this is how we're doing it. That when they're at home, yes, you can have complete control. When they are at school, you should be able to have a ton of control theoretically, but they also have to have their way of doing things. And so like we mentioned before. So anyway, then what I said was, okay, so whenever you are on this, then I have to be right here. I'm going to be sitting right here behind you. I'm going to be like crocheting. I'm going to be like looking at my own messages on my phone. But I'm going to be right here. You have to tell me how long it's going to take for you to get on there and what you need to accomplish. So then they would say, okay, well, I need to be on. I need to check my email for school and send this assignment to my teacher. That's going to take me about 20 minutes. And I would say, okay, I can sit here for 20 minutes. If I had to go and do something, I would get one of the other children to sit right there.
What if they want to
for the
game
20
and just play a game?
Yeah, so we weren't a gaming family. That was just me. So
Okay.
because I said this thing is a tool, not a toy.
I'm a gamer. My children are gamers.
Okay, so this is okay.
But guess what I learned in counseling? The counselor said the Air Force and Space Force, one of the top type of kids they look for is a gamer.
Well, there are some skills. I'm not going to say you can't learn any skills from gaming. You can. There are some skills that you can learn from gaming, but you also really truly develop a stimulation dependency when you get into gaming. And this is something that you don't want your children to develop too young. It's one thing for you to go, I would like to play a game for a while and be a game because you've also had this whole upbringing where you weren't stimulated in that way. And so you know what normal feels like and what it doesn't feel like,
was
right?
invented when I was still a teenager. So
okay, so you're younger than me for sure.
So they're getting hit with cortisol and dopamine and
all this. So I told my
stuff,
children, I said, okay, well, you can have, this much time, like if they exhaust all their friend times or their other hobbies or things they want to do, if they want to come to me and say, hey, can I play 30 minutes of, this game or whatever, that was going to happen one time a week. So they had to be careful when they picked. And I told them, and people are going to think I'm insane, but this is the honest truth. I told them that if somebody else is playing and you're watching, that counts as your time. Whether you're actually running the controller or not does not matter to me because that is stimulation of you still mentally playing
so
the
watching
game with the
people
people
on YouTube play a game.
Well,
Same.
Would
they
count.
didn't get YouTube. Though.
Same.
That makes sense.
Same.
No,
not that we never saw a YouTube video, but we weren't spending our time there.
But that was
My
not
kid
something
would go
that
to
they
YouTube to see how to play
I
the
would
game.
never, because so many families I talk to, their children have been exposed to sexual content through Minecraft on YouTube. They teach their graphic sexual things through like people watching someone play Minecraft on YouTube.
Well,
I would
right
never-
I am
now,
a parent that watches YouTube with my child, but I've never seen that.
right now,
That's good.
My kid has seen it on a Google
there's
search.
stuff on YouTube.
Yeah.
But right
Well, I know,
now,
but
they're watching a TV out there, and I promise you, he is on. Now he's 18,
Mhm.
but I promise you, he's on his phone at the same time.
That's how you know people actually do have a bit of a stimulation problem.
addiction.
Mhm.
And I noticed that I kind of do because I've gotten to where I
It
listen
kind
to
of almost turns everybody ADD, whether they were or
I
not.
listen to
Yeah.
podcasts or audiobooks almost all day long while I'm working.
Yeah, but that's
Like I can't.
that's kind of different.
I used to be able when I was in my 20s, I could work with no music and
But that's not
silence.
visual
Mm.
stimulation.
But now
That's just
that's still stimulation. I don't know if I could right now. Just like the state is going to force me to quit this. I don't like that they're making a law, but hey, I don't
you're
want
going to drive to Wendover with everyone else.
There'll be a line of us all.
I bet you have a tall order too.
But I know that I'm sure I have that stimulation thing because I'm always
But see,
listening to an audio
you're
book
learning.
or a podcast. Even then,
it's me. I like to drive and learn.
yeah, but
So I
even then,
listen
it's
to books.
still.
I listen, and to me,
I drive
I
and
don't
do
count that
audiobooks. I love it.
as like my visual and the finger mode and watching video after video. I don't compare listening to a podcast or a book like that.
I still
same
think it
stimulation.
is.
Well, you would know if you actually start
not the
getting
same person I was.
antsy and craving some sort of a stimulation. You would know
I'm not
because
the same person I
audio
was
can
25 years
absolutely
ago.
do the same thing. It's not as
So
vivid
music?
in the brain as the visual as well as the audio. But actually, yeah, there's
Actually,
some
I'm sure
people that
it's-
can't. They always have their headphones on.
I'm
They
sure with
always have
women,
something in their
it's
ears.
probably considered more because women are not as visually connected to the world as they are mentally and audibly.
Yeah, so women historically have been the ones that like to read their erotic
Well, read it,
stuff.
but or listening
I
to
like
it.
forensics pathology books, and I would read those. I enjoy them. But what's the
Nerd.
line between you're overstimulating yourself or you're addicted to something? I could put the book down, but if it was too good, I'd stay up all night and read it. At 12 years old, I would read novels.
I think the line is,
So I
can
don't-
you give yourself a no answer? Can you say to yourself, what are my priorities? Is this going to help? Like, if I stay up all night for this,
What
is
does
it going to hurt
me?
anything else in the future? And if I decide that yes, it does, can I tell myself no? And can I teach myself delayed gratification?
That's what
because
I learned
that's-
as a
That's
child.
we don't do delayed gratification in our society very much anymore. And this is the problem. And like you said, they're so smart. They're giving us every single thing we want. We go to ChatGPT and we ask for all the answers and boom, there it is. And it may not be 100% accurate, but it's right close if it's not. And so we get everything that fast. And the fact that you can get something so fast and never have to learn delayed gratification actually makes a person more like anxious
It
if
does.
they ever have to wait.
I am not as I'm telling you, when I was early 20s, I could go to work all day, not have anything playing in my ear. I could drive a Hammer or whatever I was doing and I'd be fine. Nowadays, the radio doesn't suffice it for me.
Yeah, the radio's garbage. It's nothing but ads.
But I mean, even then, it was probably pretty much the same back then.
Mm.
But I demand more constant stimulus than I used to.
Well,
Mhm.
for
I've
me-
always got a podcast or an audio book in my ear. Always.
But you are so addicted to learning. This is something I know about you. You
Yeah, but
like to learn new stuff all
half
the time.
it's just a zombie apocalypse novel.
Okay, well then change your content. You know what I'm thinking though? As a kid, I did learn to put the book down and I treated it like a reward. If I get my homework done, I'm going to read my book.
Mm.
If I do
So then
this,
you
an
were
accomplishment,
having control over it.
it was a reward
Right.
mechanism for me. My children's iPad time is a reward mechanism in our house. If you got this and this and this, you got bad grades, you don't even get to play it till next semester.
Mm.
I mean, it's and
So you have a
it's
system
more
put in
hell on
place.
me
I did
than it
witness
is on
that
my
happen.
child.
She does do that.
It's more painful for me because my child is literally going through an addiction withdrawal and it's all punishment on me. How do I keep him busy? What can I have him do other than chores and make it look like a punishment? But what I notice, he tends to play more with his sister. His sister
course
stays
he
off her
does.
device. She and him, now they're
create
building
a
forts.
culture. Yeah.
And they're a culture against their mom. Now they're totally joining in forces together against me. But part of me loves it. I hope they're not watching. I love
Kids
it because
do
I
daring
want them
things
united.
when they're not hooked to devices. Actually, they do daring things. They might do some stupid things, but they'll do daring things.
They might ride a
But you
bike.
need the stupid
Yeah.
things
Go
to happen.
outside.
Yeah, because actually that's a
where
good
the
part of
lessons are
learning.
learned.
What can you really do? What should you really do?
Where are
right?
your
You're
boundaries?
accountable for you at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And for me, I would much rather my children unite against me over an iPad withdrawal because it makes them together and not living two separate lives. They become so connected so that someday when they're adults, they have each other.
You're lucky
When
you have
I'm
good
not here.
kids.
You know, they've got, I don't know what I would do without my brothers after losing a parent. Our family went into chaos for a bit, but we've settled and we're together again. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have those moments that I'm afraid a lot of kids are missing out on with their siblings. It's all school
because if
and
you're just in the same
devices.
house, that doesn't mean you're having family time.
Right.
No.
We can all be in the same house and be isolated the whole time.
And
Yeah.
But we're in the
trauma
same house.
will connect kids
Mhm.
in a way that I'm afraid to say is not great, but it'll connect a connection between kids.
Trauma connects
Trauma around
any
parents.
people.
But when you have
Shared
no
misery.
trauma, nothing, you have this. Unless you're playing together or communicating like that,
Even
you're
then,
not together.
It's just not. Yeah. Even then, it's just not the same as when you just sit and look at a person and see their
Yes.
spirit, their soul. You see their light, and you just feel like this deep connection, this
This
bond.
is Venus speaking full.
That's right. That's right.
Does
Anyway.
Spencer know about Zeus?
Yeah, he does.
Was Spencer Zeus?
No, Spencer was not Zeus.
Oh,
Spencer's
Spencer.
way older than me. Yeah, no.
Way
He was-
older.
He's like, well, okay, 6 years. He's 6 years older.
My husband's 15. now,
Okay,
so
okay.
don't
You
tell
got
me
you got
way
us
older.
bet. You got us beat there. Anyway, so but yeah, there's this moment where you get to look at a person and that's vital stuff.
That's what our kids are missing.
That's vital stuff.
If I
That's-
boiled it down to anything, they're missing the connection with other people.
Which is why even if they are using the game thing as a reward, like their iPad as a reward, even so, it still should be completely okay for a parent to test if they can still accept that no answer. That you could say, well, I know that you've been working toward that, but tonight's a no because we're going to do something else. The parent still has to test that all the time with the children.
Right.
It is the parent's job to do that, because if the child does not learn to be able to be okay when they don't get their way when they're like 10 or 15, how in the world are they going to be okay when they get dumped when they're 25?
If my
Or
children
how are they going to be
watching,
okay when they don't, you
if
know?
they were watching right now, they would know exactly what you're saying, because I tell them all the time, this is a test. So you failed it, just so you know, by their behavior. When
Mhm.
my husband's home on an off day, I don't let their friends come over. My husband's off. We're going to do something as a family. And the fit they throw, if they don't get to play an iPad or get to watch a movie that's their own, is a test.
Mhm.
And I tell them that all the time.
If mine
Guess
ever
what?
did that, I
Next
would
week-
say, you have just now shown me
Exactly.
what the prescription needs to be. We're done with any friend time or with any digital device, whatever they were begging for.
My husband's on now. So you hear me, honey. This is so true. And he's calling this an awesome session because it's like we're in with like a family therapist almost, right?
Well, we could go down this road for a really long time.
Yeah.
But this is what
But we
my
do have
generation
to-
of parent is lacking, because
Mhm.
we grew up without technology. We learned how to use it. Millennials have had it most of their lives.
Mhm.
The Gen Z have only known
How
technology.
many infants were
and
handed iPads?
schools now have
That's true.
focused education around technology.
Well, I think that's bound to happen.
But
That-
you have to, right? If that's
They
where it's
have to.
going, I don't like it.
There was an
At all.
argument once upon a time when they were bringing books into schools, and old prophets were saying, no, they've got to just have route memorization through poems. I guarantee that was an argument. And now books are in schools. It's the next thing.
But the Chromebook is coming home, and your child now has access to the internet at any given time, provided by the school
can they go
in
anywhere
off
on the
school
Chromebook?
hours. No, they have guidelines of what's allowed and what isn't,
As
but
long as-
YouTube's on there.
As long as it's
So,
controlled.
Jared, think of this. When your child is really young, especially around the ages of up to age 5, around age 5 to 7, they have
So
more
25 years ago.
Okay, so they have more synapses in their
And
brain
they're
than any other time.
building them too.
So yes, super fast, tons of them all the time. Okay, so that is the time when they actually can memorize. We're talking anything. My children were memorizing the Gettysburg Address, different proclamations, the Declaration of Independence. We were memorizing and scriptures and poems and songs every single day.
Repetition and memorization.
But now,
I was not a good parent. My child was memorizing how many Legos he had.
See, we do our Patriot Camp. That's our cream age.
Mm-hmm.
The kids that age can memorize. We have the preamble and the Constitution and all the amendments.
So if at that time you just hand them something to stimulate them, because everyone can be stimulated, you hand them something to stimulate them instead of to encourage that, which the older generation would have thought books are just a stimulation, just novels are a stimulation. They would have thought that
was my big stimulation. When I was in the Army, I'd read a book a week.
Okay, so they would have thought that, right? So if we hand a child a stimulation that's even more intense than a book, right? That's going to be this digital audio.
It's hitting every single
and it's
point.
Controlling you. Push this button if you want to move over here, and push this over here. And look, somebody's chatting to me. I got to chat back. I mean, it's as if the whole world falls into the device, right? So we do that. And what are they going to ever get to any of those core memorized things? Like, I can tell you all of the nursery rhymes. I mean, I can be like, sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 4 and 20 blackbirds, babes.
You can also tell us
I can just rip them all off to you because
multiplication too. Because
absolutely.
We memorized it.
Because my mother made sure that I memorized so many things.
All
because
50
at
states
that time,
in alphabetical order.
Yes. Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Connecticut.
My kids know that, but their school taught that. Yeah. Memorization was important.
And what about the capitals? Of course, same thing, right? But they don't actually do this anymore. They don't do this anymore because they figure that the solution is to entertain the child, to trick them into education through entertainment.
Common Core, though, too.
Actually, the children want the education so bad. And so then they just get sidetracked by entertainment and they think that's what's expected. So we've created this incredibly low bar. I mean, John Taylor Gatto, back in the day wrote a book all about dumbing, right? The dumbing down of education
Yeah. John Taylor Gatto is
was that the Common Core ideal?
He was
John Taylor Gatto,
a proponent of a definitely different educational model, more individual.
That always got in trouble.
Dumbing us down. That's what it was called. Dumbing us down.
His students, he had them set up businesses.
Oh, he really gave them meat.
And he's taught in the worst school. And
I can see that being huge.
Around. He made a big impact, but that was in the
you must have read. Did you read the underground history of American education?
I didn't read it.
You
bought it, the one for dummies, like the dumbing down education for dummies.
I think I audio booked it.
Yeah.
That's like reading it.
Yeah, and I want to get onto that because we've got to close the show down. But I have to wake up at 3:30 in the morning to go.
That's if they don't call you now.
Oh yeah, they might call me in tonight. So I've seen on your Facebook, you've been reading into a microphone. Are you reading your audiobooks? Is that what you're doing? Or what have you been doing?
Oh,
she's been doing a million things.
So many things. So I do have, I have audiobooks. Yeah. Parenting a House United is an audiobook. Been
doing in your,
I do a lot of podcasts. So I do my own podcast. I do other people's podcasts. I do, YouTube. So I do a lot of
Parenting a House United is one of your books.
Parenting a House United is the main book. There's also a book called Roles, The Secret to Family, Business, and Social Success. That's also an audiobook. I do have another book called Popular Parenting Methods, and which is a great assessment book for parents. And I'm working on the audio for that right now. So that might be been the thing that you were talking about.
In the microphone.
Well, you were in Glenn Beck's.
That was YouTube. That was YouTube.
You were in Glenn Beck's studio recently also, right?
I was. And that was for a show that's coming out called The Mom View. So the Kimberly Fletcher, I don't know if you know her, Moms for America. Awesome. Anyway, she had me come out. They're filming episodes for a show that's coming up called The Mom View. Okay. So that's going to be really fun.
I want to get this down. I got Parenting a House United.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other one?
Roles.
Roles.
The Secret to Family Business and Social
So
Success
go
is
on
the
Audible,
subtitle.
look up Nicolene
Just look up
Peck.
my name. Yeah, those two will come up for sure. And then there'll be another one that will be coming at some point. We've got Spanish and Japanese and Chinese for the Parenting House United book. That's the kind of the main one that people usually go to. But yeah, my YouTube channel is Teaching Self-Government, and the podcast is called Teaching Self-Government. And so that's
Good. And
probably what
that's-
you were seeing.
I think
filming
that's
of.
the key. I'm a hardcore libertarian and all that. I am not a religious person.
Mhm.
All of my beliefs come to it from that libertarian, English libertarian. I'm not one of the weird European libertarians. I'm a Lockean libertarian. I believe in
Okay.
personal responsibility,
Okay.
not Rousseauian believing in
Oh,
the
and
government should
thank
take care
you,
of me.
because I really struggle with Rousseau. People do not even know that Rousseau turned all 5 of his children over to an orphanage to the state because he didn't want to raise them.
Color me shocked.
I'm like, are you kidding me?
the difference between
And he's
Wait,
telling
you're saying
people
that's an option?
the difference between English
Fire stations, are they still accepting children?
the difference between English
Probably.
and European is English is self-reliance, European is government gives you freedom.
Mhm.
And I'm an English libertarian. But anyways, and then go check out www.peck, P-E-C-K, the number 4, Utah.com. That's Nicolene's governmental website.
Are you keeping this website?
Yeah, it'll just stay up as long as I'm in office, and who knows, maybe we'll add some things to it and stuff like what committees I'm in and all that
do
kind of
that.
stuff.
And
so
bills that you're sponsoring. I bet there are going to be a lot of people running to you as a co-sponsor on education bills, family oriented. All I ask is you consider freedom first. That's all I ask as one of your friends.
100% will. 100% will. And another big thing for me is there's a lot of like stories like, oh, the crying story about this person, this person, this person. And I totally care. I'm helping a lot of people with their stories all the time.
What's the crying story?
Well, but people will come up and say, well, my son this, and so you got to make a law. Okay. But okay, so there's a lot of that happens. But I do 100% believe also in that when you are making legislation and making law, you have to look at what impacts the greatest number of people.
The majority.
Exactly. You can't look at just this one isolated case.
People don't realize every single bill is everything to one person. That's how it even gets to get
That's
started.
how it starts. It's one story.
And as
that turned into
legislators,
something.
you have to consider the good of the whole.
Well,
You do, which means that, but I am a constitutional, freedom loving.
I know that about you.
I am. So 100%, I already have 8 bills that are in the hopper of all of the newbies coming in. I probably had the fastest jump start.
How do you get 8 bills in the hopper? Are they from last year? And you're just taking them on as a rep?
A couple of them are refiles from last year. They weren't mine, obviously, because I wasn't in last year, but they're refiles.
The person just tried calling her.
And then a couple, and then the rest of them are other things that people already had been coming to me about, and that I already knew were issues that absolutely needed to be faced. And that's it's a big load. I mean, I'm like, okay, whew, I'm already hitting my max on stuff, but a lot of the bills that I'm running, in fact, I would say the gross majority have to do with protection of children in a way that is responsible, stopping exploitation, empowering parents, and making sure that we solve some of these types of things that we're talking about here in a way that I think is going to be wise and responsible, and the way that if the government's going to chime in, the way they should chime in.
Nicolene, you have been an example of all these things. I mean, when you started this path to become the representative for Tooele, this was probably the last thing on your mind when you started this path.
It wasn't on my mind.
You were about families and children, and you used your own family and your own ideas and what you've learned as a kid, even from your parents, to create your family. And you realized, hey, this works. I'm going to share it.
Well, I was begged to. I didn't even want to do that. Yeah.
Look what it became. And this is only the beginning. I'm sure there's far more in your future because you are a gift to families like me who are like, hey, there's no playbook here. How do you raise a child in this day, in this culture that feels confident and secure and free and accountable I mean, how do you raise a child? I'm trying. My
Mhm.
husband and I try our very best, but
And people
there's
don't know what they don't know.
rules.
They don't, because we've lost a lot of things culturally.
Yes.
We've lost stability that comes with unity within a culture. You really, really have. You've nailed something really important in the statement that you just said, and that is that the most important work that anyone ever does, ever, is in their home.
True.
And when they put their full heart there, their full focus there, then later, or maybe even at the same time, maybe simultaneously, because for some it does turn out to be that way. But if you put your whole focus there, then you realize, oh, and I now need to do this, or and now I need to do this. Your soul gets called to do something else.
That's true.
And you feel like, okay, now is the time, right, to do this other thing. And you start having a desire to make more goodness around you because you spent so much of your heart and your soul making goodness right there in your own family. And that's where everybody has to stay focused. And we have to protect that and maintain that so that nobody is infringing on that sovereign family.
I have to know what it's like to see your children become parents and to see that, I mean, what you've taught them and how they put it in action with their own little ones.
It's the best ever.
I bet.
It is absolutely the best ever. When I look at my daughter with her children, she's got 3 children, and I mean, they're babies. They're 6 months old, and she's teaching them how to take deep breaths and self-regulate and be calm. And her little toddler, she's teaching her how to be calm. And she's like, nope, this is a no answer. And then little Claire's like, okay. And teaching her husband how to be calm when he wasn't raised with that same type of understanding of how to regulate himself. And them as a couple learning how to communicate over those things. Just because you're raised well doesn't mean you get no bumps. Right?
Yeah.
Everyone has bumps because you all meet all the different people around you. You don't get to have control over everything all the time, but you can always control yourself. And that's something we worked on a lot in our family, which is what people have me teach.
That has to make everything worth it.
Little Marcus Aurelius being brought on the show. Right?
I bet to see that in action in your own child, and probably you sit back with those grandbabies thinking, every bit of my time and energy and every prayer and every little argument you have with your husband about what do we do here and what's the best way here, it's all worth it when you see your child become a parent and actually win at parenting.
You know what? Yes, but it's even worth it when they struggle.
Absolutely.
I'm going to say that because I think a lot of parents could think, oh no, I'm never going to get there. Mine aren't turning out. And I worked so darn hard.
The struggle is what makes
the
them.
one thing you have to remember is that as a parent, you are entitled to these thoughts, these ideas, I'm going to do that. I'm going to tell them that. And you form them in a way that you don't really even realize how deep and how significant it is for them. And then even if they struggle, even if they get out of the house and they go dive off a cliff, all these little things happen, you still can go, but I got to be the person that in their head is in there all the time.
Yeah,
because you are in there all the time. There was a time when my oldest son said to me, Mom, is there ever a day that I'm going to think, what would my mom think about this? And I said, probably not, son, because that's actually one of the gifts of having a parent.
Absolutely.
Is that you go, wait, how does this match what I learned when I was growing up? And you can go away from it or you can go toward it, but it's always going to be there for you. That's what parenting is. And it's such a gift to all of us to be able to be that person. And even if we messed up, I think another thing we have to realize is that nobody's ever done. And I think that's the beautiful part of the human experience, and that we can always strengthen family, go back to family, as long as we keep putting our heart there and deciding not to take it personal if things don't go exactly our way. It's a really big thing. It's a humble pill that every parent has to take at one point or another in their lives. But yes, it's an incredible gift to see your children turn out that way and to be adults that you go, wow, you're wowing me. That is an incredible gift. But I have some of my foster children that I raised that they left my home and they bumped along, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, how come they got into that? I guess, well, their dad was a drug dealer. So, and
you don't get to own a child's mistakes, just like you don't get to own all their victories.
Yeah,
they'll grow from their mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
If they're raised well and they're loved and they know that they're not victims, they're victors of their story.
Right.
And right from a young age, well, what did you learn? I mean, I say that to my kids, what did we learn?
Mm-hmm.
Because they have to fail if they're going to get something great. I mean, that's what life is. It's a trial and error of failures, and then they find who they are, and it's that voice in their head, what picks them up and makes them try again and makes them try something new.
It's truth. It's their relationship with truth about themselves, their identity, and that comes from that relationship with the parents.
Yes.
It absolutely does. We get to form so much of them. And this is why there's such a battleground over education and the things that happen in education.
Amen.
This is why
When the government wants your kids.
it's a big
Government
thing.
education. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think for me personally, is giving your children also a relationship with God early on. I know not everyone believes in God, but for me, having that relationship in our home and to say to my children, look, there's nothing you can do. He's going to be there for you. Look for him in your best times, but look for him in your worst. And I'm going to be there for you too, because love is unconditional, and love is the best gift God gave us as humans. And he wants us to love and be loved. If you look at life that simply, and that you can survive it because you're not alone ever, and that long after I'm gone, I'm still there with you, that outlook on children and that voice in their head, I still hear my father's voice in my head. I still hear my mother's voice, and she's with me still.
It's a gift.
But that's a good parent. And parents are not perfect, and they are going to make tons of mistakes. And as kids, we forget they're normal people. They're always up here. They're always our parents. When we look at them as human.
Until we hit like 14, and then we think we know more. And then.
Till life knocks us down a peg in our 20s. And then we're like,
did yours start earlier, Jared?
Actually, my kid was the easiest child.
No,
to raise.
You thought you knew everything when you were a teenager.
Dude, I was straight on poop head. Dad, I'm sorry.
My parents, I know, got all of their gray hairs from me. And it's actually a total irony,
what did
really.
Venus do?
Well, I was a strong-willed. I'm still very strong-willed.
I'm sure you were a well-behaved. No, I was not. But we don't.
There were lines I would not cross. I set my own rules for myself. Good. There were lines I wouldn't cross, and they did match a lot of my religious rules. But when it came to relationships with my parents and the way that I worked with them and dealt with them, oh buddy, I was rough. And I think there's always a little bit of roughness right there, because that's the time when the child has to develop some of that autonomy so that they will launch, so they have to do that, but then nobody knows how to work through it. Anyway, so I was tough. Yeah.
To the video before we go.
I'll bet you were, but my kid, easy.
Look at that. That doesn't even look like me, that picture you're looking out there.
Take us back to our faces.
Oh, hold on. I just want to announce, everyone. Also, with Nicolene, you can go to her website, her business website, teachingselfgovernment.com.
Oh, is YouTube not teaching self-governance?
No, YouTube, the YouTube channel is called Teaching Self-Government, and the podcast is also called Teaching Self-Government. Okay. That is the name of the company.
Sorry,
government. Yeah.
She's boiled it down to the TSG. She's the TSG posse. Honestly, if you are a libertarian, this is the key. You secure a family, you get to keep the government out. The government's here because we have lapsed in our cultures, and in some ways we probably lapsed in our cultures because the government's here. So
and we've allowed it to get too big.
Yeah, butterfly flaps its wings in California, and we get some of the offshoots here. So, but you guys go check that out. Seriously, check out the Teaching Self-Government, and yes, for Holly, I will.
Well, I want them to see her before we say goodbye.
Yes, we will.
And Tooele County, we're so lucky. I mean, you're replacing Tim Jimenez, and we loved him. I mean, I can't think of.
He's an amazing rep. He's still a rep until January, right? He's an amazing rep.
But talk about accessible and actually live by example, and somebody that really believes in a community and in a republic, a representative republic, meaning I'm going there for you, not for me. I am going to be your voice and represent you. Like, he's the true, real deal. And we adored him. And I've known Tim for years. I know him as a friend and a dad and a community member. So I thought, what better guy? I begged him to run for office, and he did. And so did so many others. You are like that. You guys have different specialties.
Sure.
But you're both so community oriented. Your families are community oriented. You live by example. And I happen to know you are a lion up there on the hill. You piss people off with your passion sometimes.
Oh, yes.
And you are the squeaky wheel. So why not be in a place where you get to represent your neighbors? I just think it's amazing that you ran for the seat. I think the reflection of your election.
I've been attacked by all different kinds of people.
People from your own side have attacked you.
They have,
especially.
Yeah, and this is because everybody actually gets a little obsessed with the idea of control. So I don't want to control anybody else. I don't want to control the state. That's not the point of the process up there, is for Nicolene Peck to control the state.
You're supposed to give us control.
Or for anybody else to control the state. I want to control myself. And because I control myself, that also makes me very hard to control, which then also bugs people sometimes. And so there is that. So there is that.
As the chair of the GOP, I've had a phone call or two regarding this woman. So much so I had to call this woman, this community member, and go, "Hey, you good?" And got to know you, and I just adore you. I think you're the real deal. And Spencer is the real deal. You guys are amazing people. And I'm honored that you do this show so freely and openly and willingly. And
thank you. I'm not a very guarded person. I'll just tell you whatever needs to be. So there you go.
Well, a person who lives an honest life can live an open life. And I dig that you've been bringing a little, I don't know if you're
should be a t-shirt.
I know.
Did you just make that up?
Yeah.
I feel like he could make a lot of t-shirts.
I don't know.
One with the cat again?
What?
The south end, north end of
tastes like the south side of a northbound cat.
See that? I don't know what it means, but I'm getting a visual of directions in my head.
I really.
The cat's walking north, and you're tasting the part on the south.
Okay, yeah, no, I get it, but
and the cats doesn't walk backwards.
I'm just saying, why don't we have a merch department?
So I don't know. Have you studied much stoicism in your life?
You mean trying to be a stoic?
Yeah.
No, I would not say that I went down the road of saying I'm just going to be a stoic. No, but
what is that? A stoic?
Stoicism. I used to buy, like, whenever I had people in my life that were in troubles, you know how it's usually self-imposed, and I would buy meditations. It's such a quick book. It's a pamphlet, really.
Yeah, I've read that.
And that's honestly,
I think
a
stoic.
Stoicism, it's a Greek philosophy by, I forget the guy's name, but the guy who really brought it forward to us was Marcus Aurelius, you know, the gladiator.
Oh,
the emperor on
Maximus.
Gladiator. But the emperor, that's portrayed by him.
Which emperor?
The real one, the father. The one that dies in the beginning, but that's him. It's meditation, and it was just his journal, and then someone published it after.
So it's having
and kind of getting. Well, it's like getting in touch. It's like getting in touch with yourself. Did I study in that angle?
It's all self-control.
Yeah.
You can't control anything out here, but you can control everything.
Right, and that's probably more just from I would say my upbringing from my father. So more than it would be like studying the Stoics. So. My father was absolutely the guy who would say, well, they're teasing you because it matters. You should choose for it not to matter, and then they won't tease you. Oh, I can choose that.
You get to choose your reaction.
You know what I mean? Those types of things where it would come back to the power I have every time. But okay, this may be your problem, but what's the power you have? Don't be focusing on what everybody else has to do to solve your problem, Nicolene. How are you going to do it?
Brilliant.
And so he was a speech and debate teacher at Murray High School for many years. He also taught at collegiate level.
Snap.
So yeah, so I was raised by a debate coach, right?
So,
you had to have given them a headache then because you had the weapons. They gave them to you. And how good was it for them when you could use your own weapons?
Dad,
especially my mom, who wasn't the debate coach.
She's like, okay.
And your dad's like, oh, Venus, we got to discuss this. Oh, okay. I can just imagine the midnight oil burnt on that one.
You know, though, there was a beautiful moment, and I tell this to everybody. My dad he knows about this story all the time. There was a time when I was 14, me and my parents did not get along, especially me and dad. So we got two strong-willed people just
see that, honey? Even the best
heads.
Girls.
Okay. Anyway, and then I went to a neighbor's house and we were planning a party, and I realized, I'm not going to get to go because I was at a point where I was kind of on lockdown because we argued so often. There was no trust that was there. And my friend, actually, my friend's mom said to me, well, of course you have to come to this party. You helped plan it. And I said, no, he's not going to let me go. And she said, well, have you ever thought of just saying okay? Because I said, and I was like, what? That would never work. That's what they want me to say. And she's like, no, we'll postpone the party for 2 weeks. You go home every time they tell you to do something or not to do something, say okay and be okay. So this is a neighbor giving me advice. Neighbors don't give children advice like that anymore. They just, oh, poor baby, poor baby. Like that's what everybody does. Yeah, exactly.
There is when the boys come over, when Katie's boys' friends come over. I mean, I'm colorful because I'm old Army.
Okay. So you got a little bit of a militant streak in you. Yeah. Okay.
If there needs to be a colloquy, if you will, in my description of what they're doing, it will be colorful. There will be something they should not repeat in front of their parents or teachers.
But they're grown-ups.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say you and Shakespeare. It happens. Okay,
so girls is different. Anyway, women are babying them and going, "Oh, you're a victim of your mom." And
Katie's a girl, but
so let me tell you. So I go home and choose to say okay and be okay. All right, my parents are shocked at first. Then they put it to the test.
So they're like, what is she doing?
They're like, what does she want? Right? You could tell the look like, what is going on?
They're like,
huh?
So there was no trust.
Here.
No, there was. Yeah, there was no trust. And I looked at the looks that exchanged glances, and it was like, what strategy is going on next? Right? What is happening? Anyway, but then a little bit of time went by and they saw that I was sincere. I literally just was changing it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to just change this because I wanted to go to this party 2 weeks, from now. And everything changed in the relationship. And I remember my dad standing in front of the congregation at church. He's at the pulpit and he was one of the leaders that's in the congregation. And I remember him standing up there and saying, I want to thank my daughter for teaching me what it means to be a good father. And it just blew me away.
Wow.
The humility of my father. And he acknowledged that our relationship was repaired and that I had chosen to do that. And the fact that I had set the roles straight because I had chosen to be the learner instead of trying to push myself on them all the time. And everything changed. And that moment was so pivotal for me. I mean, the whole situation that happened when I was 14-year-old with the neighbor and the party, and I got to go to the party, by the way, and all that stuff. But that moment when he stood there, it was like, I fixed it and he knows it and he's saying it, that I chose to make all the change here and that my choice was that powerful.
And you are that powerful.
And so
plus your life was better.
It was like foundational for me. So then when I take in all these troubled children and I'm like, what? They're doing what? And I'm like, okay, I cannot behave that way. I cannot. I have to make a plan for myself. And that's what my whole books and all the things are about. It's like, what skills do I need? What skills do they need?
So you show up very
and so I made
controlled.
A system for myself. And it wasn't controlled to control someone. That's different. That's manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
It was controlling myself for the sake of liberation for myself.
Right.
The ultimate in stoicism.
So I guess, but I didn't study it the way you're insinuating, but yes.
No, your father, you did study it the way I'm insinuating.
Did it break your heart when you noticed your parents were stunned by your behavior right off the bat? When you say they were exchanging looks like, oh, it's got to be manipulation. What does she want? Did it make you as a 14-year-old go, wait a minute, why are my parents surprised?
I think I was a little proud of myself for shocking them. I should have been more tender, but I had been so used to power struggling with them. It was like,
I understand this.
I think you needed to feel the win because you won. That's a legitimate win. That's an honest, straightforward win. Your neighbor, she coached you, she put you in the game, you put big numbers on the board.
It gave
you brought home the cup.
I bet it made you closer to your parents.
Oh, we became so close. We're talking the dad that was the public school teacher now had the wife who would come check the daughter out of school for Nordstrom's half yearly sale. I mean, she was just checking me out from school for left and right, everything. She's like, you're a straight A student. Doesn't matter. Let's go have fun. And she would, all of a sudden we were friends.
I tell my kids that all the time.
So here's the thing is,
you want a different relationship. You have to take control of yourself.
They were anti-Dr. Spock because he was like, you got to be the friend, not the parent, right? Dr. Benjamin Spock, right? He ruined a whole generation of people.
Manual for parents.
Which was a really bad,
the
really bad manual. Anyway, and so they were anti him and they were like, no, we're going to be the parents. But what people don't understand is if the parent and the child role actually function, if they're functional everybody becomes friends.
I think
That's how it works. It's
That's
built
how I
in
was
the
with my
truth
mother.
in the roles of the identity. But if you try to push friendship, if a parent tries to like, I'm just going to be your friend. So, and we could take this to a political stance because this is a political, conversation here too. If I just try to be everybody's friend and give them everything they want up there in the Capitol and, oh, okay, I'll do your bill if you do mine. Oh, okay. If I do that, we lose all respect and it becomes pure manipulation up there. But if I instead say, tell me about why you think that needs to be, and I'd be happy to listen to you. I want to hear what it is and ask lots of questions. And then if I say to them, you know what? I see that this is really powerful for you. This is how I feel about it. I don't agree because of this. I hope that you can see that with an open mind. And if they're like, I'm not changing, then I would say, okay, but I hope you know that I am grateful for the time you spent with me, but I'm not voting for your bill.
I like
You
that.
feel like a grown-up.
Because that's what you do when you communicate with people. So some people will attack me online for just being seen in a picture with a certain political figure that might not be exactly a
I know the
conservative
feeling.
or exactly a whatever. And so they'll attack me and I'm like, are you kidding me? You can have relationships with anybody you want, but that does not mean that you have to agree with them. And for them to virtue signal and say, because I was in a picture with a certain person,
They assume
that would suggest that means I believe everything that person believes. I don't play playground rules. If somebody doesn't believe the same as me, I discuss. I don't like run away with my ball and say I'm not playing with
That's
you.
exactly how I feel. And that's exactly how I try to do my work in politics, that I'm not prejudging you. Don't assume because I'm in this picture or that I'm attending this event that I totally agree with everything. But the last thing and the most stupid thing I could ever do is shut that person out who happens to be elected and just shut them out and stand on principle. I'm sorry. The only way I'm ever going to get what you want is to go to this person and have a conversation and let them know what you want. If I shut them out,
but it's also okay to say to the person, well, I don't agree.
Exactly.
It's totally okay because that's what adults should be able to do. And our whole American society, the whole American dream, all the farmers, all the ladies shelling their peas and sewing their things and making saltpeter and whatever, they were saying, we disagree. I disagree with you there. I disagree with you there. Still love you, but I disagree. And this was what our whole society was based on, is that there will be disagreements. The whole legislative process, it is a process. It is not a who gets to have control. The media has turned it into that.
Yes.
But that is not what it is. It is a process where people discuss, they share ideas, they say, I will do that, I will not do that. And it's either mature or it is drama and babyish. And if we go to virtual signaling, cancel culture on the right or the left, we go to playground games instead of mature.
That's where credibility is lost.
I've been studying Winston Churchill. We're talking, I've been doing an audiobook of when Winston Churchill. The audiobook is like 86 hours.
Wow.
It's a monster. Okay. I'm not even all the way done yet.
Is it an autobiography or is it
it's not autobiographical, but it's done with all of his letters and all of his stuff. And so it's a biography of his life, but it has a lot of autobiographical. Anyway, but I'll tell you what, the reason why Winston he was loved, then he was hated, then he was loved, then he was hated, and then he was hated again, and then hated again, and then, oh shoot, Winston, we need you to get out of this war, or whatever. So all of a sudden, but people knew where he stood all the time. And he
That's because drunk men
and he had a quote. Yeah, and he
Mm-hmm.
was a drunk. It's true. Anyway, but he had a quote, and his quote was, never confuse popularity for principle, or something like that.
Yeah, I know.
And I was like, oh, that is so good.
Mm-hmm.
That you or influence, never that maybe it was for influence, never confuse popularity for influence. So he knew even if they hated his guts, he had the influence by having the counter opinion, even if he later found out he was wrong before. Because people can find out they're wrong before, but he would just own it.
He mentioned a few times when he was wrong before. I also, one of my next books in the shoot that I want to do, and I need to really bold up for this, but I want to listen to Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley.
Oh, I've read it. I've already read it. I've
heard it's a slog.
It's the manual, and it is. Yeah,
I've heard it is a slog, but that's
it is the the global takeover manual.
know something?
It's a history book of it. It's
you'll see a lot of things that have happened already, and you'll be like, oh dear.
So when you bring up the power that you got when you were 14, I was the exact same age when I had a situation where I was in trouble with my mom. You know, that age where just that 12 to 14 is when the kids kind of push off their parents. They want to fly,
hormones. Yeah.
and they're quick on the handle, off the handle, and dads and daughters aren't close. And for me, it was my mother. And it was like a moment of clarity where I had a chance to lie to her, and I did. She straight called me out. She asked me a question that most moms do, already know the answer to, and I lied. And she quickly was on me. And she said to me, you decide how this relationship is going to go. I'm mom, you're you. You can tell me the truth. I don't care what it is, even if it's not going to make me happy. You tell me the truth. I am in your corner, but I'm your mom and I will love you. And I just remember being like, oh yeah, well, here's the truth. And her reaction was so surprising because she didn't blow up. She didn't freak out. She said, thank you for telling me the truth. My mom and I never had a tough spell. When all my kids, all my fellow friends, they all were battling with their moms or were mad at their dads. My parents, and I was a very bold child, a very controlling child, and I was always the boss.
Strong wills, yeah.
But my parents just let me be me, and they always treated me as an individual child.
But they stayed their role, though.
They kept their role. They're the voice in my head.
They didn't baby you.
When I wanted to ask, when I asked them for advice, they would give it to me, honestly, as if I was a friend.
Because it helps you mature. Yeah. And I did the same with my children as well. And
they let me negotiate. Here, and it taught me a great skill. Here's why you should let me go to that party on Friday, because my grades are great. I've got 2 jobs and I'm taking care of, and that relationship, it's like I had the key to the castle and I could always go home, always. And there was nothing I couldn't tell my parents.
We call that disagreeing appropriately in our house. Yeah.
And going on vacation with my parents, especially my dad, it was a must. Every time my husband and he was my husband's best friend. He was my best friend. And we went on vacations with him because he was fun. I pray I have that relationship with my children. So I also had a dad who had a job. If you victimize
your children, you won't have that relationship.
Absolutely.
If you allow your child to play victim and you think of yourself as an oppressor of your children, you will not have that relationship. It won't turn into that. You have to maintain the roles.
Kids to understand you're the mom. And you'll do everything to protect him, but
you lose your function otherwise. Because if you don't keep your roles, then you get dysfunction. And then everyone falls apart on the inside. And that's what we're actually experiencing around us right now. And this is why we see legislatures and schools and media people and everybody chiming in on what we need to do to fix the problem. But nobody is saying parents need to be held up as the parents.
Right.
And the children need to know the parents are the parents and don't mess with that. And everybody's going to make sure that happens.
Well, here's the thing. They are saying it by their actions. Their words are saying be libertine. But all of our wealthy class and our political class, they all live very conservative, stoic lives. They all get married and stay married. Raise their kids in schools that don't teach this corruption.
They don't hand them these devices.
They allow the masses to have that. And is it they're corrupting the masses to keep them down, or is it just it's an easier thing to give the morons what they want? Well, because you
actually succeed more when you follow that historical model, actually. And so people who break away from it because they get caught up in, we got to do something new because this becomes the
progressive,
the new movement, then they actually lose out on a lot of the perks that come from that historical model. I'll tell you one thing. I listened to a talk. It was a speech that was given at BYU by a researcher they brought in. Anyway, I just recently watched it this week, and she was actually discussing family models and outcomes. And she said that Salt Lake City, Utah, now think, that's not even the most conservative city in Utah. Okay.
Not even close.
Salt Lake City, Utah, she said, had more intact families, like children being raised by parents who were still intact, who were still married and stuff than anywhere else in the nation. Salt Lake City.
No kidding.
So I'm like, oh, well, what about the rest of the state?
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was really surprised.
That's the healthy model.
I'm sure that they probably surveyed
Salt Lake County.
Well, maybe it's the county. Maybe, I don't know. She said Salt Lake City, but it could be the county. But maybe they also surveyed like,
religious families?
only big cities, as opposed to all the little tinny cities.
I'm sure they just focused on
like main capital cities.
Cities.
That's my guess. When she said that, I thought that. I'm like, oh, she could probably go to Cedar City and get even a higher rate or whatever.
Could you imagine if you were trying to survey, if you just said, we're going to survey every city over 50,000 people, that survey, you might get done with it. Your kids might finish that survey because that one's huge.
But how many out of the 50,000 would you do? Most surveys is what, 1,000?
I did find it very interesting that when she had so much data on the outcomes that the children get. I've heard it before.
Is it based on the religious principle of the city?
No. It didn't have anything to do with religion. She even wasn't.
I'm sure. Well,
even though she was at BYU, she was not a member of the Church of Jesus.
Yes, but I'm sure the religion plays a role.
Oh, actually, yes, she didn't point
culturally.
She didn't point that out, but I actually surmised that myself.
Yes, I'm sure the religion plays
the values of the people go back to their religious.
It's not just that
worship,
but when you have a dominant of one religion, you have a dominant of a culture, and cultures protect themselves by demanding people in that culture respect that culture. Divorce, but
demanding. I'm like,
it's not that they demand by force. Cultures demand things.
It just becomes a culture.
But you would think that cities
because I'm sure if you went somewhere that was
Catholic
completely
cities,
Baptist or completely Catholic, they would reflect the same thing because it's the uniformity.
Well, in Catholic religion, it's because
it becomes a cultural norm.
It's not a sin to get divorced in Mormon culture. It's not likely. You don't want to do it, but in Catholic, it's not like
encouraged,
serious sin. So I'm curious.
It's not a serious sin anymore in Catholicism. I thought they're okay with everything now. They got that new communist pope. But anyways, no, it's a culture. Like anytime you have one solid culture, the culture, they tend to bind culturally.
Right. And
just like society. Adultery used to be.
It just becomes the social norm.
Adultery used to be hidden. Like if you were committing adultery, you kept it way hidden because culturally, the neighborhood, your neighbors would disagree.
The Scarlet Letter.
And this is within our parents' lifetime,
Well,
and if you go back,
I don't actually think that that's a bad thing.
It's not. No, I'm not saying it is.
I think there's a
lot of people
why.
still hide it.
It was one of those 10 commandments.
I'm just saying it
still is.
It's just a strong culture. We're losing our culture as a nation, but a strong culture impedes on that corruption.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I really do think that a religious society does, especially when the religious society, in Utah has so much to do with family. Like that's kind of like the thing, right? Family. And so there is a big emphasis, I think, on trying to make sure that that's really done well, or at least put a lot of emphasis in it, I think. And maybe that makes a difference, what all the exact factors are
I'm
that
so
are in
amazed.
there. We don't know, but I felt it was a really interesting statistic. And
really,
yeah. And I felt kind of like proud of Utah. I was like, wow. And Salt Lake City to
especially
boot.
since we've grown. We've grown by double in 20 years.
And so many people have actually moved here.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't
Boise,
see,
I was up in Boise last year and it looks like Salt Lake City did 15 years ago. Clean and orderly and functions.
I have children
Salt
live in
Lake has
Idaho. They
failed
like
miserably over the last. Yeah, I don't even recognize it. And
awful.
I lived there my whole adult life.
It has a lot of troubles, and I know that there's a lot of people working on it. Well, it's going to be an exciting legislative session, you guys. I already know of quite a few things that are up and coming. Some of them I can talk about, some of them I can't. But and I don't even know where they're going to all land. I know we're going to see a lot of people. Really, I've already heard so many people that are just doing so many wonderful, brave freedom things, and so I'm really excited to see what happens there. I feel like we've got some good freedom fighters up there, and
a lot of
the
freshmen.
House is I'm really excited to go into the House. I feel like the House is there's just this energy in the house, this spark in the house that just really is like, wait, what's the freedom principle there? There's just, a
lot of fresh faces, a big freshman class. I'm so excited about that.
The freshman class, are we talking mostly Republicans, Democrats, libertarian leaning? What are we talking here?
About the freshman class?
Yeah.
There's a mix, I would say. There's going to be more. I don't have them all nailed yet. I don't have them all nailed yet, but there are some that are more moderate. I mean, that's for sure. There are a few that their races were so incredibly tight that they were down to like, I don't know, 70 votes or something. I mean, it was just so tight.
Salt Lake County. I think they took
quite
a
few in
seats
Salt Lake County
and Republican seats in Salt Lake County. That's pretty exciting.
Well, and in Ogden, I know Jill Coford, she ended up winning, I just lost her name. Rosemary Lesser's seat, and she's a Democrat. She's been in for a really long time, and she beat her out. I mean, it was tight. It was like down to the wire. I can't remember, but I think it was right around maybe 100 votes or something. It was very, very small.
I don't think people realize 100 votes is like it's like a hair. It's the tiniest
so tiny.
amount.
And so we are ahead as far as that goes. Won some seats. I do think there might have been one Republican seat that did turn Democrat. And so that's something that doesn't usually happen, but that did happen. So that was a thing.
No, I'm not anti-Democrat. I'm just anti the Democrats. Now, and a note to you Democrats, don't try to uproot the whole economy at once, because this is your outcome.
Anyway, but I think there's a good group. I mean, as far as like, you know what, one thing I have to say, if we're going to talk about the Democrats, I have met a lot of the incoming Democrats. I haven't gotten to know every one of them, but quite a few I've had some good conversations with. And you know what I'm really excited about? I'm really excited that they were just so open to talk.
Good.
That's great.
So to me, that was awesome because a lot of the ones that are incumbents, like one of them, I went up to her and I tried to talk to her, and she was like, "I know who you are," and that was it. And it was
your name, your reputation, prestige.
But she wouldn't even, like talk to me. And I'm like, well, that's a very interesting way to play this game.
Have you ever been around a hostile llama?
No.
Do you know the Democrats of Utah are totally different than other Democrats in the country? You're going to find 80%
bile at you.
Agree with you.
Well, actually, there's some really incrable people in there.
Yeah, you're going to find so much common ground with them.
Yeah, so that's one cool thing. Like all the ones that I've have spoken with, I really felt like they just were going to be really great to talk to and to have conversations with, and there were some things that were said where I was like, note to self, there's no way we're going to agree on that, but that's okay. It doesn't matter because they're still just open to sharing with me. They're not guarding anything. I'm not guarding anything. We're like, here's where we are. And I love that among the not the conservative, but the Republican group of freshmen coming in, they're like, well, I'm going to probably be more like so-and-so who's in there. Or I'm probably a little bit more moderate because my base of people that I have to represent is this, or I'm probably a little bit more conservative because I'm da-da-da-da-da. And people just talking really open about it. And we're all like, okay, well, that's where we are then as a group of new people coming in. But I think there's kind of like this respect culture that's really getting strong in the group. And I love that. I love feeling like already that all of these incoming freshmen are friends. We've been talking a lot. We've been going out and having dinners and getting to know each other. And even if we don't agree with each other on everything, that's not what we're focusing on. We're focusing on, but how are we going to communicate with each other? How are we going to talk with each other?
The pulse of the state that put those people in office, including you, they're done with an overpowering government. Even the Democrats, the people are done. They want their electeds to work for them and not the other way around. So I think these freshmen voted in this year at this time in the world where we're at right now could be where we're headed going down the next decade. Enough of the good old boy club where we're the boss, we're the government, you guys are going to be fine with whatever we do.
This is how it's always been done.
These are freshmen, hopefully, that get in there and go, how does this help my neighbor? How does this help Utah? And I will vote according to the people and the people are going to give me what they say or what they, and what we need is citizens to stay active and engaged with these folks that you've sent to the Capitol, because the more involved you are, not just during election year, but the more input you're giving your representative on issues, the more she knows how to vote, because her whole job is to vote on behalf of you. And these roles have been forgotten.
It's true. And I'll tell you what, I knocked so many doors. And you know what? I was the only Republican nominee in the end, in the final election. I was the only one left. And then there was me against the Democrat. And I knew he wasn't doing tons. I didn't know exactly if he was knocking doors or what. I wasn't sure. But I felt like, I don't think I want to go in to represent these people unless I have gone to their houses and talked to as many. And so day after day after day, I was knocking doors. And you know, when I met the other incoming, some of the incoming freshmen, stories about, well, when I was knocking doors, I heard. Well, when I was knocking doors, I heard. And I'm like, yes, I am so glad that this group, because many of the ones that said they were knocking doors, after their primary, they never needed to do a thing again. Or they just came in through convention and that was it. They didn't have anything to worry about, but they still knocked the doors. They still wanted to know. And so I feel like you're mentioning, there is an earnestness in the group and a willingness to actually be, a type of person who is going to listen. I'm open-minded. That doesn't mean that I'm easy to sway, but I am open-minded and I will listen to what anybody has to say. And I want to. I hope, like you said, that people reach out to me. There are so many things I learned while knocking doors. And if I didn't get to your neighborhood in this door knocking session, don't worry. I'll get there again when it's not so freezing cold.
I knocked on doors in West Valley for a couple of candidates. Mm-hmm. And I found absolutely how brilliant. I know exactly what you're saying. I know Democrats that voted Republican this year, and they weren't on my list. But while we were knocking on doors, Melanie and I, hi Melanie, chair of Summit, we actually met people who walked on up to us because they saw we were knocking on doors and said, no, I'm done with the way things are. I'm voting this way this time because I'm done with the government. And I heard that so many times. So many people we talked to.
So many times. There were people who told me that. And
they were done with party too.
There was one time I knocked the door.
To the end, but they were done with party.
No, exactly. Agreed. I heard that as well. But there was one time I knocked a door and it was a young guy came to the door. He was probably maybe 25 or so, mid-20s. Okay. He comes to the door. Here's his dog. He picks up his dog. And I introduce myself and I start, saying, hey, I'm just coming by to meet you. And here's the situation. He takes his dogs and he sits down right in the door frame. And he just looks up at me and he's just smiling. And he said, I'm sorry that I had to sit down, but I am just so enjoying this grassroots. I never thought someone would come and knock at my door and care anything about what I have to say.
And not just a representative of you, but you.
But me, that I was knocking on the door. Yeah, exactly. And he just loved it. He's like, I'm just taking this all in. He was like making a memory.
Yeah, because our communities are starving to be heard. They're starving for it.
We need to go back, make it a law, the Davy Crockett style. You have to get a soapbox or a stump and stand in the middle of the city.
You need one of those things in the town square like they used to have.
Stuff. Remember that show with Eddie Murphy where he had the van and he drove around, had the speakers?
Oh.
And when he went through every neighborhood, he went through the Jewish neighborhood and he talked kind of Yiddish, and then he goes through the.
I have a vague. That's an old. That's an old one.
Yeah, now we're talking 80s.
What movie is that?
It's back in the 80s. Eddie Murphy. He made lots of them. But we do have to close this down.
Yes. My goodness, we are an hour and a half almost
Nicolene, thank you so much for coming on.
We could do 3 more hours with you.
Easy. And you're invited on anytime. You call, we make space. But
thank you.
I would like to get you on after session to
once we get going
on where we're at. And if during session you got any updates, even if it's just an email, you send to Holly and say, Here's a
And
word to
I
get
love
out
following
there.
you
I'd
on
be happy-
Facebook.
I'd
You
be
update
happy
everyone
to.
on Facebook. Do you invite people to join your Facebook, or is
I'm
that
trying
private?
to decide what to do right now because I've got this really robust Facebook and I'm like, I don't want to like just admit every single person because I don't want it to turn like
Right.
purely political.
I would.
And so I'm like, I kind of think I'm going to need to get another
I would-
Facebook
yeah,
for
I
that.
would
And I
think
haven't
Facebook's going
done
to
it.
force you to if you get too many people on your friends
Yeah.
list.
And I have one that's kind of like a public figure thing, but then people watch that for parenting stuff. So I'm going to probably have to have another one
yeah.
that's just so that I can talk about this stuff because I'm happy to be open about what's going on, what we're working on, what some of the hard things are. And I know that I'm not going to vote the way everybody wants me to every single time.
And she
and I-
does teach her kids to say no.
Yeah, sometimes you
gonna
have
ask
to
her to
accept
lean
a
on
no
that.
answer.
But
Sometimes
you will
do.
have an answer as to why you're voting and why you're
But I
voting.
will.
And that's
I'll
something
always
that
explain it.
is
I'll always
very great.
explain it if somebody doesn't agree, because there's no way in a county this large and in a voting area this large that I would ever be able to make every single
And this
person happy.
diverse.
Yeah,
Nor should
every
you.
single time.
nor
No.
should you.
But if I hear from people though, if people reach out to me and they say, "Hey, I care about this," that will make a difference.
And
So
if it's
I hope-
constitutional.
Yeah. So I hope that people will reach out through, especially that legislative email. That would be the one that I would watch for on things, which is that NPEC at le.utah.gov. So anyway,
That's nickel N.
NPEC.
Is it N period peck or just NPEC?
NPEC.
Sounds
N-
like a rapper
Peck.
name.
NPEC at
Dude, we should get you one of them.
le.utah.gov.
One of them rings, those gold ones.
Oh, great.
And peck.
Boom.
Oh, you could do a sweet commercial.
Utah.
But .utah.gov. Yep. And if people reach out to me, then I would be happy. I mean, I really would on any issue. We will be watching that email. We'll be making sure that we are hearing people. Again, that doesn't always mean I'm going to be able to go with everybody if but still, even so, I want to hear where people are at and what they care about. And if the issue comes up again, we'll be able to go, okay, well, so-and-so warned us, or
You could do
whatever
even
it is.
You could do a Facebook page and actually do surveys regarding a bill, explain the bill.
Could
and then
do.
get
There's a
people
lot of
interacting.
options. Yeah, there's a lot of
And
options.
reach out to me if there's ever anything you want to do, a town hall, if there's ever a time, because everyone would be invited. We don't care. She becomes the representative for Democrats, independents, Republicans. It's not just the Republicans that she represents. And that's why it's so important. We're all in her ear, giving our opinions on bills, but you are a very open door person. And if you put out that bill, I mean, this bill about the vaping, this has been done since March. We just got wind of it this week.
Yeah, I wasn't.
So,
I wasn't when I followed up
it
there
was
this
really
year. So I
under
was
the-
like, oh,
Under the radar. It's not something I would have
seems
known
like
to
it
even
was
look
kind
at.
of a quiet one.
But if you're bringing these bills to people's attention that you're working on, at least you would get a pulse from the community of what's, if Democrats feel, Republicans, it doesn't matter. Your neighbors, what do they say? What do they think? And
I'm still extremely ambivalent on that bill.
please use us if you ever want to get information out
I
regarding
can
a
see
bill.
two sides on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't see freedom as number one.
Affected one, and I still see two sides on it.
Well, because culturally messaging. And we could talk at length. We won't keep
Yes.
going.
All
We
right,
won't keep
everyone.
going.
Thank
We
you all
got a
for tuning
reminder
in.
that when you get your robes and your goat mask, don't wash your robes with your white socks. It turns socks pink.
I don't know what that means.
Dulls the color of
But
the
we have a
robes.
lot
But
of you that have tuned in tonight, and we're so grateful. We didn't get to the
Yes.
comments, all of you, but thank you for your participation.
Yeah, Melanie,
And-
we see you. There's a couple new
Thank
people
you
in right
to
now.
Nicolene and for being here.
Yes, and
Yeah.
thank you for
No problem.
stepping
Thanks
up.
for putting up with my cute little hat today.
No,
I don't know if
dig
I've
the
ever
hat.
worn these for so long, but tomorrow I'll have it on in the parade. So if you're out
Good.
here in Tooele County, yeah, I think it's 2:00. The parade starts. And
Really? It's not
yeah.
a morning?
No, I was told too.
That's
so I
great.
will be late to the
They
parade.
don't want to do it
but
in
I
the
will be
morning
in
when
it.
it's
Too cold.
And guess what? Tim Jimenez is actually going to be driving his cool Goldilocks truck, and it will be
he's driving the
decorated,
bourbon.
and it will have my signs on it, and I'll
Good.
be out walking around by it. So
Guys,
it's
go to
going to
the
be a lot of
parade.
fun.
It's such a
Yeah.
good time.
It's
I'll
gonna be a lot of
still,
fun.
I'll still
And then
be
head
at
to
work.
Grantsville after.
2:00. I believe it starts down at Coleman. It starts down in Coleman, and it starts midway through Coleman around like 200 South-ish, and it goes north and then up to Vine Street and then up to, I think,
Twill High.
no, the park, the Veterans Park, and then You know,
Yeah.
you kind of turn in by the Veterans Park and it ends there. And then there's going to be like a sing along and a Santa and stuff at the Ritz Theater after that tomorrow night.
Okay. So that's the ending spot. So everybody can get pictures with Santa usually, or
yeah, and so they
something
can
like
go
that.
over. I think it's over at the Ritz that all that will happen.
That'd be
the
cool.
Santa stuff at the
See
Ritz,
the
so it'll
Ritz
be
open.
indoors. So anyway, there is going to be some fun stuff tomorrow, and I'll be there, and it'll be fun. And some of my children are in from out of town, so they'll be hanging out
Perfect.
around the parade too.
Thank you for coming on, everyone. Nicolene Peck, go check out her
Remember,
both her websites, her government website, but check out her business website. Please check it out. Purchase her goods and her wares, because I think they are going to be fundamental to rescuing our civilization and our society.
and tune in on Friday where we
Thanks,
have
Sherry.
Senator Scott Sandel,
Next Friday,
who's joining
yes.
us. And you guys reach out to us. We are Facebook Interactive. So post stuff on the page or reach out to us if there's somebody you want us to get on, or if there's something you want us to talk about. I mean, geez, maybe you'd even be a great guest. So look into communicating with us. We love it, even when you're trolling us. And did we not have our troll tonight
I didn't see him come
on YouTube? Dang it.
I'm not
Yeah.
interesting enough. It's fine.
Oh, maybe he's just
he-
busy. You know, the
Well, it's Black
holidays.
Friday.
Yeah,
Right.
he's probably out
Oh,
shopping.
He's shopping. Yeah, for
I pray that it's a very good season for all of us, and that,
he's
you know, hope is an amazing thing.
isn't it
Watching
wild?
people and thankful, and people who over the Thanksgiving, you know what? I just imagine what it would have been like had we had a different outcome in that election.
Our economy's already kind of bounded
already
back.
coming back.
Everyone's telling me that this is the busiest
That's
Black
hope.
Friday they've seen in like a decade.
And you know,
I went
retail
out and the shops were full.
retail
Was it-
businesses
I had to
stay
wait in a
closed
long
on
line.
Thanksgiving. They've been staying closed on Thanksgiving and opening this morning rather than starting Black
On
Friday,
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving night.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man,
savages.
that's really cool.
Gotta
And
respect.
I mean, I'm guilty. I've made purchases on Black Friday,
I
but
am guilty of not ever going. My
I do it
sisters-
online.